right. Good morning. We are live. With it being so foggy out, I figure there's probably going to be a few people late. We'll get started anyway. Did anybody have any questions on what we covered on Monday? Any concerns? Am I going too fast for anybody? Are you getting the material? Okay. Good morning. All right, so between last class and today, you had chapter 1 to read in the yellow book, and then you were to take the test on page 181 of the spiral book. Did you guys all do that? Did you grade the test using the answer key? And you know how many you missed? Okay, there's a grading scale down here that'll tell you your score based on how many you missed. So everything's worth 5 points. So if you missed 1, you got a 95. If you missed 2, you got a 90, and so on. But this kind of spells it out for you. When I call your name, tell me your grade or tell me how many you missed, and I'll do the grade for you. Okay? I'm going to sit today. Sorry, guys. My knee is not happy with me. I think it's the weather. All right, Brianna. Natalie. Thank you, Katie.
I got 1 wrong. I got a 95.
Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Sonia. Elena.
I got a 95.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you, August. Justin. Holly.
100.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Special. Harmony. Okay, those of you that missed a question or two, do you have any questions on the ones that you missed? Do you need me to explain to you why the right answer is the right answer? Do you understand why you got it wrong? That's the most important thing. Not that you got it right or wrong, just you understand the why behind it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Let me know. Throw something at me. Say, hey, I don't get it. And I'll be happy to explain it. Okay? Any of you guys okay.
Number 1, I feel like slapping a patient is like a little bit of neglect.
Okay, so this is a question that gets missed a lot. So what is the difference between abuse and neglect? And they're all kind of legal terms, right? So neglect is a failure to do something. So if I don't clean this patient, that's neglect. It's a failure to act. Abuse is an action that shouldn't be taken that harms the patient. So slapping somebody is actually abuse, not neglect. Does that make sense? CNAs usually are much more likely to be charged with neglect because you've got this patient that you've got to take care of. You've got all these tasks you have to do with the patient. And if you don't take those tasks and you don't tell the nurse that those tasks weren't done, you can be charged with neglect because the patient isn't getting the care that they're paying for. It's kind of like if you took your car in for an oil change and they charged you money for that oil change, and then they give you the car back and the oil wasn't changed, but they don't tell you. What kind of damage could that do to a car? It could do a lot of damage, right? So shouldn't we sue that company for taking our money and saying that they did a service and not telling us that the service wasn't done so that we could rectify it? And then long-term damage happens, right? So this is the same thing. Our patients are paying for our services. If we fail to provide that service, somebody needs to know so we can make it up. So CNAs are often much more likely to be charged with neglect, just not being able to get to the task. And that's normal, right? You're going to have way more patients than you can possibly take care of on certain days, right? All the planets are going to align and everything's going to go wrong. Okay. That's not the problem. The problem is if we don't tell anybody that we didn't get that care done. If we just think, well, the patient will whatever. We can't be that lackadaisical about it. We've got to make sure somebody knows. If we don't, that's when that neglect charge can come in. Most CNAs aren't out there abusing patients, taking an actual action that harms the patient. Most CNAs aren't doing it. There are some that do, though. There are some that do. We've had several right here in our county that either physically assaulted a patient or killed the patient. So it does happen, but it's not as prevalent as neglect. Okay. Any others? Good morning. Any others? Okay, anybody catch the game show yesterday? Okay. Did you find it helpful to kind of see the types of questions that you would get on the state exam and how to apply deductive reasoning to figuring out the answers? If you did not get a chance to join live, you can watch the replay on our YouTube channel. Okay. Especially the closer you get to testing, that replay or those replays are going to be more and more important. And I've been doing that game show twice a month for almost 2 years now. So there's lots and lots and lots of questions for you to be able to go through to view them. All right, so let's review. Anna says, I just started the CNA course and we're just in our second class. So are we. Welcome. It's a lot of information to take in. What's the best way to study in order to pass in such a short time? That's a great question. So the answer to that is actually on the screen. Review, 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 review. And we are going to have a review of everything that came before at the beginning of every class up until class 7. So you're going to have a review today of what we learned on Monday. And then Monday, you'll have a review of what we learned on this week, Monday and Wednesday. And each class, those reviews just keep building. So class 7 is going to be, good morning. Class 7 is going to be your most comprehensive review. And I want you to kind of tuck that in the back of your mind, because when you're getting ready for the exam, you're probably going to want to go back and watch the first 45 minutes of class 7. Okay, review, 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 review. The class worksheets that we give out at the end of every class in class are also available on our website, flcnatraining.com. You guys can download those and fill them out. Those become a study packet. If you did not catch the replay or the game show, watch the replay, because the written test is not testing you on what you think it is. Everybody kind of defaults to, well, it's got to be medical terminology and positions and medical abbreviations and body systems and all this technical stuff, right? That's kind of what we think that test is going to be about. It's not. It's not. That's not what's on the test. The test is going to ask you, what are you going to do when? It's all scenario based. Your patient falls. You walk into the patient's room, they're laying on the floor beside the bed. What is your first action? That has nothing to do with medical terminology and positions and abbreviations and body systems. It's asking you, what are you going to do when this real life thing happens? Right? So A would be leave the patient and get the nurse right away. B would be look for injuries and help them back to bed. C would be ask if they're hurt. And D would be call D would be stay with the patient and call for help. Yeah, we don't leave patients. We don't leave patients. Even though A kind of sounds right, you know, go get the nurse right away. That kind of sounds right. We don't leave patients. So if you know that, you now know how to answer probably 3 of the test questions. The questions on the written test are not hard. They're not. They're not designed to be hard. They're not designed for you to recall information. That's not your role. Remember, CNAs don't think. We don't think. So the test can't test you on thinking. You're not going to be asked to apply knowledge or regurgitate knowledge. You're going to be asked, how are you going to take care of this patient? I'm going to watch you do it in the clinical skills. And the written is going to ask you other situations. What would you do? That's what the CNA test is all about. So it's not hard, but you have to know these things. These are the things, these principles are what's going to be graded on the state exam. So review, that's going to be your best friend. So let's get to it. How do we know what to do with each patient? We follow the care plan. That's right. So it's not just the care plan. It's the care plan, the whole care plan. And what does that mean to you when I say that? Don't think. That's right. Don't think. Don't say to yourself, well, maybe, or well, if. No, if the if applied, the nurse would already have taken into account and put it on the care plan. If you can't follow the care plan for any reason at all, I don't care what the reason is. There's a tornado outside. Your patient's on the ground. Your patient refuses. If you can't follow that care plan for any reason, what do? Yeah, you just tell the nurse. Absolutely. It's that simple. That is the entire role of a CNA. That's it. We try to overcomplicate this thing in our minds, but that's it. That's it. We follow the care plan or tell the nurse. So while we're following that care plan, we should be making what? Observations. This is anything you see, hear, smell, even feel. If the skin is rough and bumpy, the nurse needs to know. If the skin feels warm, the nurse needs to know. If it's pale and clammy and cold, nurse needs to know. Anything you smell. Now, this one's kind of interesting, right? Because, humans are animals. We have smells. Some smells are somewhat normal. Some smells are not so normal. But there's some that really make you sit up and take notice. If you walked into a patient's room and it smelled like grape Kool-Aid, do humans normally smell like grape Kool-Aid? No, that's something that would kind of trigger in the back of your head going, what's going on here? And you look around and there's absolutely no grape Kool-Aid anywhere. Anywhere. What would you do with that information? Tell the nurse. Now, it sounds really ridiculous, right? Why am I telling the nurse that the room smells like grape Kool-Aid? That's just a little weird. It's because there is a pathogen called Pseudomonas that when that pathogen develops an infection, it smells like grape Kool-Aid. And one of the most common places for a Pseudomonas infection is in the urinary tract. But you can also get it in ear canals and in wounds as well. So your patient might have a horrible Pseudomonas UTI, and your first clue is grape Kool-Aid. Isn't that crazy? So everything that you smell that makes you go, that doesn't seem right, you should report it because it may be the sign of something very important that nurse needs to check out. Make sense? We don't go with taste, by the way. Please don't taste anything, but all your other senses should be employed, okay? All right, so everything that we notice, all of those observations, who needs to know? The nurse, that's right. So we're going to report everything off to our nurse. If our nurse is not available, if they're at lunch, if they're working with another patient, if, whatever, if they're not available to us, now we got to use a little discernment. Okay, is this important enough to go up my chain of command? So it might be if your patient is on the floor, right? Or you're notifying the nurse that somebody else's patient is on the floor and you were sent to notify. That's something we need a nurse. I don't care what nurse I get. I need a nurse. If somebody has chest pain, I need a nurse, right? If it's an emergency, I need to find a nurse. If it's just a routine observation, like your patient is not in immediate distress, then I need the nurse. So there's a difference there. Okay. Emergencies, I need a nurse. Routine, I need the nurse. Does that make sense? You might have a test question on that. It won't be that, clear. But just kind of remember that. Emergencies means I need a nurse, any nurse. And we go up our chain of command. So that means that right above us is our RN. Whoever's telling us what to do with these patients, that's who we're reporting to. That's our RN. But above that RN is some sort of a supervisor. Could be a shift supervisor, a floor supervisor, a unit supervisor. There's a supervisor of some sort. And above them is usually the assistant DON. DON means director of nurses. And above them is the DON, which is the director of nurses. So we have us, we have the RN, we have the supervisor, we have the assistant DON, we have the DON, and then on and on and on it goes from there. You can have chief nursing officer, executive. You can go up quite a few levels. We don't go straight to the administrator, knock on the door and say, hey, great Kool-Aid, room 212. Right? That's not going to help us. We need somebody closer to that patient. So we have to use our chain of command when we escalate in order to get the patient the right help. Make sense? Now, this is for every problem, not just patient problems. This is also for staff problems. You have a conflict with another coworker, you go to your supervisor. If they can't help you, you go to their supervisor and you move up your chain of command, right? So this chain of command works for absolutely everything. You do need to know about the chain of command for the written test. Okay, good? Questions? Okay, so every skill starts with the opening. We have to do it at the beginning of every single skill. Doesn't matter what the skill is. What does every opening start with? A knock. And that is a graded checkpoint. We have to remember over everything, it's always all about the patient, right? So when we approach the patient, we've got to do it in a way that makes them feel like we care. This isn't just a job, right? We want to put some feeling into it. So we are going to greet them. Good morning, good afternoon, hello, how are you? We're going to be nice. Good? All right. We are also going to address that patient by name, not honey, not sweetie, not dear, not darling, by name. Now, I'm old-fashioned. I know I'm old, and boy, am I getting older. In fact, I have a birthday this weekend. I am getting old, and I know that. Way back in the day, we did not use first names. First names is a relatively new thing on the block. Anybody older than you called by their last name. Mr. or Mrs., whoever, Smith, Jones, whatever, pick a name. As our society has changed, first names are becoming much more common. I don't like this. I don't like it. Because I think that it makes us too familiar. And I think we start treating patients more like friends than we do like patients. I don't use first names. I don't. I will go into a room and I will call you Mr. or Mrs. and your last name because it's a sign of respect, but it's also a sign of professional distance, which is important in our career. Now, if they say, oh, please call me Henry, I will then say Mr. Henry. Again, I am creating that professional distance. Professionalism counts. I don't like this first name movement, not in healthcare. I think it's fine in other industries, but not in healthcare. That is something that you might want to just kind of tuck into the back of your mind, because I think that we're moving back into that formality. in healthcare. And I think you're going to see this change coming in wherever you go to work. It's starting to spread and take effect. And I'm very happy about that, because I think when you become too familiar, you look at patients differently. When they're having a bad day, you roll your eyes like you would with your best friend or your kid. You're like, quit being a drama queen. That's not how we should be interacting with our patients. We should understand that they're having a bad day because they're having a bad day. It's not drama. And our reaction is going to impact them. Does that make sense? So we're going to greet them by name. For the test, we are using Mr. or Mrs., and there's only one name for the test, Jones. Everybody in here is Mr. and Mrs. Jones. All right. After we have greeted our patient by name, we're going to introduce ourselves by name and title. So I'm Patty, your CNA today. It's that simple. Now, I told you I've been doing this for like 20 years, right? Well, I still worked as a nurse for about 10 of those. So I would, teach. Hi, I'm Patty, your CNA today. I do my videos. Hi, I'm Patty, your CNA today. And then I would go out to work and I would go into a patient's room and say, hey, I'm Patty, your CNA. No, I'm not. I'm Patty, your nurse today. And the patients would laugh about that. Please be aware of what your role is when it's your role. All right. Then we're going to describe what we're there to do and put this in terms that are comfortable for you, but keep it professional. Your patient knows what pericare is. You're not the first one there to do it. You were never the first person to do a skill, by the way. Never. Never. The first person to do a skill is the nurse, because we do normal, routine task, stable patient, right? Routine task, stable patient. Well, if somebody needs something brand new, that's not a routine task. That's not us. We are never the first person to do a skill. That's right. You don't think. Your nurse would be the first person to do the skill on that patient, to explain what's happening, why we're doing it, how we're doing it. They're going to educate that patient, and then we're going to follow up and do it from that point on. Your patient knows what pericare is. You can use that term. I'm here to do pericare, but you can also say, I'm here to clean your personal area, here to clean you up down below. What you don't want to say is, I'm here to clean your hoo-ha. Okay, that's not what we have to remain professional. You can put it in your own words, but make sure those words are appropriate. Okay, good. Now, once we've explained to them what we're there to do, we are going to get consent. Now, this for the test is graded under preferences, but it is graded. It's not specifically spelled out for you. And this is where I said those checklists will help you, but they're not the whole story. Right? So, yeah, preferences, that box right there, the only way that you're going to get that checked off is by asking, is that okay? This is why taking a class is helpful, because they'll tell you all these little secrets. For the test, your patient will always say, yes, thank you, of course, sure, no problem, whatever. They'll be very cooperative because they've been told to be cooperative, and they're about to be tested, guys. They're going to be cooperative. In a clinical setting, if your patient isn't cooperative, check your attitude first. It may not be the patient. Let me say that again. It may not be the patient. If you come in there, guns blazing, with a sour look on your face, aggressive tone, and a hurried manner, your patient will probably say no. Does that make sense? If your patient refuses, do a little self-diagnostic first. If you realize that you're okay, you did everything the right way, then ask the patient, can I ask why? Is this not a good time? Are you hurting? Anything going on? And then you take that information to the nurse. But the first thing I want you to check is yourself. Because sometimes we give off a vibe and we don't even realize we're giving it off. Make sense? I mean, RBF is a thing, right? So we've got to look at ourselves first. All right. Once we've got all of that out of the way, we can close that curtain. Don't close the curtain too early. That takes your patient's ability to refuse away. Think about how that would feel to the patient. I'm asking you if I can do this, but I'm already setting up. Right? So it really kind of predisposes the patient to say yes. Don't take their ability to say no away. So close the curtain. Is that curtain clean? What do we want to do about that? Wash your hands. And we want to wash our hands before we get our supplies. Our cardinal rule here, the one that counts more than anything else, is do not touch that patient until your hands are clean. And that's because there are a lot of pathogens in this place. We don't want to bring pathogens to this patient. They've already got their own problems going on. We don't need to add to them. Okay? All right, so that's how every skill starts. Every skill ends the same way too. This applies to every single skill we're going to do. This is going to check off a lot of check marks. So we want to make sure that your patient is in a clean and safe environment at the end of the skill. So take a look around. Is there something that needs to be straightened up, thrown away, whatever? Make sure it looks good. Look around and make sure everything is safe. If there are cords on the floor that your patient can trip over, we probably need to do something about that. Because if your patient gets up and they're groggy, maybe they're medicated and they try to walk to the bathroom and they trip and fall, that is your fault. Because you didn't make sure they were in a safe environment. Good? Good? All right. Oh, what happened? Was that me? Okay. Bed needs to be in the low position. Just the low position. Lowest it'll go. Low position. I'll explain that in just a few minutes, but that is a graded checkpoint. And you have to actually say the word comfortable. It's graded. Are you comfortable? Comfortable. We're also going to address any preferences. Do you want to, for the test, we just use magazine. It's easy. It's something we can, would you like a magazine? But this could be in a clinical setting, their cell phone, their phone charger, their TV remote, crossword puzzle book, whatever they got laying around. Do you know how boring it is to be in a hospital or a nursing home or home care when nobody's really interacting with you? You need something to occupy your mind, right? If I put you guys on, our TV is off. There we go. Okay, we're good now. Okay. So, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. Okay, so when we're in a long-term care situation, if I put you guys on a break right now for 2 minutes, what's the first thing you're going to grab? Your phone. Right? You can't even sit for 2 minutes and talk to the person next to you. Do you guys understand that? Like, we are so ingrained to seek interaction, usually online. But you put somebody in a room basically by themselves with nothing to do for hours and hours and hours and hours, they will automatically internalize because they have nothing else to focus on. So every ache and pain is going to be blown way out of proportion. Every concern they have is going to be fixated on. You won't get anything done because they'll be on the call light nonstop. Give them that TV remote to get them off of the call light. Does that make sense? Okay. So dress preferences. No knobby knees. Make sure they're covered. Clothes, sheet, something. If their knees are bare and they're laying down, something went wrong. You got to address it. Your patient in bed uncovered will feel vulnerable. How many of you guys think that a healthcare facility is a safe place to be a patient? You feel safe if you were a patient in a hospital?
No, you just told me that doctors don't wash their hands.
Yeah, you literally told us that yesterday, and I already had a problem with doctors before that. Like, I was already traumatized by them before that, and then you tell me that? Absolutely not.
Doctors aren't actually the ones that we have to worry about as much as far as safety goes. You know that you don't have to go through a background check to be a patient, right? So the person in the bed next to you, how do you know that they aren't a raging psychopath?
You don't.
How do you know that the staff members aren't going to take advantage of you when you're vulnerable? And this does happen. There was a young lady about 5-6 years ago who gave birth. She was functionally brain dead after a near drowning when she was a child. She was sexually assaulted by a nurse at the facility, got pregnant. Nobody knew because she was on a tube feeding, calorie controlled, no extra calories. She wasn't eating for 2. She was not responsive, so unable to tell everybody that, hey, this is, happening. And she gave birth. And do you know how she gave birth? A CNA was giving her a bed bath. She groaned, and the CNA saw a baby coming out of her. That CNA is now traumatized because that wasn't what she signed up for. So do not assume that just because your patient is in a facility, what happened to our camera? We are having issues today. Please hold. Technical difficulties. Okay, there we go. We're back. We're back. Woo! Gremlins today. But do not assume that just because you're in a healthcare facility that you are safe, right? So if we have a patient laying in bed who is not dressed for company and we don't have anything over them, how vulnerable are they going to feel? We've got to make sure. I mean, that sheet is not a magic suit of armor. I get it, but it does help provide. I mean, when you're scared of the boogeyman, you hide under the covers, guys. Right? Those covers actually do count. Yes. Oh, okay. All right. So make sure they're covered. Now we can open the curtain. The skill is done. No need for the curtain anymore. Go ahead and open it. If the patient requests that it stay closed, that's fine. But who should we tell? The nurse. Absolutely. And then once we get all of that done, we have to give them their call light so they can let us know when they need us. But when we get all of that done, then we want to wash off those cooties. Doesn't matter the order you do all of those other things, right? Curtain, comfort, call light, clean, covered. Get all of that stuff done. But once you're done with the patient, go wash off those cooties. If you realize when you're at the sink washing your hands that you forgot to open the curtain or give them the call light or cover them up or whatever, and you go back to the patient and do whatever it is that you forgot, what did you just pick up? Cooties. So what do you need to do? Wash your hands again. It's all about the cooties, guys. All right. If we have to document, we'll document after washing our hands to prevent making our pen a fomite. So we'll wash our hands, document. But our cardinal rule is to end skill with clean hands. So what do we need to do after we document? Wash our hands again. All right. Any questions on those 2 principles? All right, we learned how to wash our hands in class on Monday. You want to turn the water on. You don't need anything to turn the faucet on. Just turn it on. Comfortable temperature. Nobody cares what the temperature is of the water. But you want to wet your hands before you get soap. Then you're going to lather all areas. The wrists, the back of the hands, the palms of the hands, in between your fingers, the bottom of your hand by your pinky, all areas for at least 20 seconds. After that 20 seconds, you can move on to your nails. You're going to go down each one of your nails with your thumb to clean your cuticles. And you're going to circle your nails on the palm of your hand to get underneath. and then you can rinse. Now, when you're rinsing, keep your elbows lower than or keep your hands lower than your elbows, and don't touch the sink or the faucet because your hands are now clean, but those areas aren't. After rinsing, tap. That keeps the water in the sink. It just keeps us from spraying water all over the environment. And then dry, however many paper towels it takes. If it takes you 2, that's great. If it takes you 20, that's fine. Nobody cares. Nobody's counting. But you're going to dry those hands and throw that paper towel away. Then get a clean, dry paper towel to turn your faucet off and dispose of that one. Good? These are graded checkpoints. So when we're doing these reviews, guys, it took me 2 weeks to redo these slides. And this is the new thing that I put on. Every single checkpoint is listed right here for you to see. So you can start to see that, oh, I can't miss that. That's a checkpoint. I can't miss that. That's a checkpoint. Oh, that's important. That's a checkpoint. So it's hopefully starting to bring those two, action and grading a little closer together for you. All right, remember, this is super important. Don't use singing as your gauge of time. Now, I know during COVID, we were all told to wash our hands and that, everybody came out with, what song they use, Happy Birthday, Twinkle, Twinkle, Beyonce, whatever. Don't do that for the test because when you're nervous, your singing speed speeds up. It's not an effective gauge of time. There's a clock right over the sink. Use it. That's what the evaluators are doing. So let me explain to you how this is graded. Remember, there's 2 evaluators in most cases, right? So one evaluator is yeah, I'm not supposed to hold 2 fingers up because it'll do that. I think it's like the victory sign or whatever. So one evaluator is standing at the sink. And they've got their checklist. And as you take the action, they're checking off that checklist. That other evaluator is not taking a nap. They're standing further away and they're the ones timing you. So when you wet your hands, okay, that's when the time starts. When you wet your hands, no, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. You wet your hands and you get soap. They look at that clock and they write down, it's this precise. They write down where the second hand is. And then you rub. And when you move to your nails, they look at the clock and write down where the second hand is. And if there's not at least 20 seconds in between, you failed hand washing. Right, no maximum, minimum of 20 seconds. But let me talk to you about maximum. No, maximum isn't graded. I mean, you can sit there and wash your hands for 3 minutes, but these evaluators are RNs. They have an extreme amount of RN history behind them. They have had to work in long-term care and have been an educator in order to be an evaluator. I mean, they're nearing retirement, guys. They don't want to be here. They want to be at home in their pool, drinking their margaritas. And you are what's standing between them and being at home in their pool and drinking their margaritas. Yeah, you're testing. You're testing them as well. Now, most of them are very pleasant and very nice. But they know the sooner they can get all of you guys tested and out, they get to go home. They're not punching a time clock. They're there until everybody is tested. And if they can get you going, and that's good for you, you're not there all day. You're tested, you're gone, right? But they also get to go. So if you are taking 6 minutes to wash your hands, and we have to do 3 skills, and we have to wash our hands at the beginning of the first skill and the end of the first skill, and the beginning of the second skill and the end of the second skill, and the beginning of the third skill and the end of the third skill. So how many hand washings is that? 6. And how many people are testing? 8. So anybody know what 6 times 8 is? 48. That means that they are watching 48 hand washings. Okay, hold on 1 second. 48 hand washings, right? Minimum. If you're washing your hands for 6 minutes each time, that's time that you're robbing them from being in their pool drinking their margaritas. They are not going to like you. Now, there's a couple of things about what I just said that isn't technically correct, because after skill 1, you're going to wash your hands at the beginning of skill 1. Evaluator number 1 grades that. Evaluator number 2 times that. You're going to wash your hands at the end of skill 1. Evaluator 2 grades that. Evaluator 1 times it. After skill 1, they're going to tell you can simulate hand washing, because where do they want to be? At home in their pool drinking a margarita. So they're going to tell you can simulate hand washing from this point. I've seen you do it. I know you know how. I don't need to see it again. Thank you very much. Okay. So we want to make effective use of our time. We don't want to go under. 20 seconds is important, but we don't want to be so egregiously over either, because that's going to make them really aggravated. Now, along that same line, I want to explain to you that you can start any skill over again. So if you get halfway through a skill and you have just been all over the place, I mean, you're like brain dead. You're just don't have it together and you want to start over, you can do that. You can tell the evaluator, I'm sorry, let me reframe, let me start this over. But if you do that too many times, your time is your time. Remember, they give you a time. You've got 33 minutes to do this skill set, right? Your time is your time. You can use it how you want. But if you start your skills over and over and over because you're looking for perfection, you're keeping that evaluator from her pool. So she might have been a little lenient when you were making a few small errors and, you know, you're nervous type thing. But if you're wasting their time because you don't look prepared, that's something different. Does that make sense? Be judicious with your time. Now, by the time I'm done with you, you shouldn't have that problem. You should have a pretty good idea of how to do these skills. You should kind of have it together. You might make a few mistakes that you have to go back and correct, and that's okay. You're nervous. We get it. We get it. Those evaluators understand this is what they do all day, every day. They've seen a million of you. Right? They know. There's people throwing up in the parking lot outside because they're so nervous before testing. We get it. Okay? We get it. We're going to make allowances for that. Stuttering, laughing because you're nervous, those are all okay. But if you're wasting my time and you're clearly not prepared for this and it's a big joke to you, yeah, I'm probably going to grade you really harshly. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to wash our hands before and after every skill. And after the first skill, you're going to be told you can simulate. And that's just a matter of saying, hey, I've washed my hands here. All right. So let's talk about hand sanitizer, because this comes up. You will go by your facility policy. Now, what that means is every facility is going to have a different way that they want to handle hand hygiene, depending on the types of patients that they care for. If we are in a nursing home where our patients live there, they're all stable, we're just helping them with basic daily maintenance, right? This is just very routine. No big bad pathogens, no Ebola hanging out, right? Then hand sanitizer is probably just fine. If you are working on a chemo ward where we are actively destroying people's bone marrow and immune systems, yeah, this isn't going to cut it. I want you to physically wash your hands before and after every single patient encounter. You guys see how those two things are not the same? Okay, so we're going to go by our facility policy. But let me tell you a little something about hand sanitizer that you probably don't know. Hand sanitizer has become ubiquitous in our society. I mean, everybody's got hand sanitizer at home, in your car, maybe even in your purse or your pocket right now. Bath and Body Works makes a living off of this stuff, okay? And it smells good. That's great. The problem is that we don't use it correctly. We don't. So, yeah, exactly. Case in point. So here's the problem with hand sanitizer. First of all, it kills 99.9% of pathogens, and that sounds like a really good thing. But the two that it doesn't kill are the ones that make us sick, the sickest. Really bad, okay? One of them is called see, you can't hold up two fingers. One of them is called norovirus. This is called the daycare disease or the cruise ship disease. At least once a year, we end up with a cruise ship in the news because they had a norovirus outbreak. Norovirus spreads like wildfire in close quarters. And it's not killed by hand sanitizer. You can use a big gallon of the stuff. You can bathe in it, and it's not going to kill norovirus. You need good old-fashioned hand washing. Because when you actually wash your hands, where do those pathogens go? Down the drain. That's the best place for a pathogen. When I use hand sanitizer, it might kill 99.9% of the pathogens, but where do they go? That's right. So if I'm going to eat, I am eating my French fries with a side of dead E. coli, which is no more appetizing than a side of live E. coli. So hand sanitizer should not be used if your hands are going to be anywhere near your face. If I'm the body in the bed and I know that, I probably want you to go wash your hands because I know that there are other pathogens in this hospital or nursing home that you may have picked up on your way in. Right? So if your patient asks you, hey, can you please wash your hands? You're going to say, oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me do that. You're not going to say, I used hand sanitizer. I know what I'm doing. Remember I said on day one, I have the immune system of a slug? Okay. If you're going to work on me, please wash your hands. And I'm going to ask you to, because I know me. And I know I pick up everything, right? But here's the other problem with hand sanitizer. We don't use it right. We don't use it right. When you use hand sanitizer, you usually use probably about that much, right? Just enough to get your hands wet. You spread it around. That is not enough because my hands are already dry. In order to use hand sanitizer correctly, you've got to get enough to keep your hands wet for at least 20 seconds. Where did we hear that before? Hand washing, 20. How many of you guys have ever used hand sanitizer that keeps your hands completely wet for at least 20 seconds? Good, very good. If you haven't done really anything. You've killed a few. Yep. So you want to use enough. See, my hands are still wet. You want to use enough that you keep your hands wet for at least 20 seconds for it to be effective. Good? Questions about hand sanitizer? You ever go to one now? They make us all check ourselves out at big box stores now. But did you ever go to a big box store that had one of those little old lady cashiers and she was wearing gloves and she would scan because she didn't want to touch your ketchup, right? So she'd be wearing gloves as she's scanning everything. Well, the problem is that those gloves created this false sense of security. She wore gloves because she didn't want to touch your ketchup bottle. And then when it was time for a break, 4 hours later, she would take her gloves off and her hands would be sweaty because that's what gloves make your hands do, right? Her hands would be sweaty. And we're going to talk about that today. And gloves allow pathogens to get through. And that sweaty palm is the ideal breeding environment for pathogens. So that cashier thought that she was avoiding touching pathogens. She would take her gloves off and go eat her lunch with a side of E. coli because she wouldn't wash her hands because those gloves gave her that false sense of security. Make sense? We're going to talk about gloves in detail right now. All right, so we have mastered these 3 principles. Remember I said we have 11 to learn on the back wall. We now have 3 under our belt. Only 8 to go. And we're going to learn 3 of those today. These are all 11 that we're going to learn. And these 4 apply to every single skill that we learn how to do. We're going to follow the care plan. We're going to do our opening. We're going to evaluate if we need gloves, and we're going to do our closing for every skill. Does not matter what the skill is. These are the big 4. They apply to everything. But let's learn glove rules, since it's one of those principles that applies to everything. So if you go to page 40 in your book, you can see that this principle applies to everything that we do. There is a video for it. And this does apply to our scope of practice as well. Notes are going to be on page 41. I'm not the type of teacher that's going to sit here and read a book to you. That's not who I am. I wrote the book. I know what it says. I'm going to put it in a little friendlier terms. But I do want you to understand that this notes page probably needs to be reviewed by you at some point. Okay, good. All right, so to understand gloves, we're going to use an illustration that has nothing to do with medicine because it's one that I find you can relate to pretty quickly and pretty easily. So in order to illustrate gloves, we're going to talk about building a sandwich. Have you ever gone to one of those places where you order your sandwich and they build it right in front of you? Okay, we're going to do that together here. Well, of course, you don't want that person touching your food with bare hands. That's just gross. So you're happy that they put gloves on. Everybody agree? That's a good practice. You don't want somebody touching your food. So I'm going to build the sandwich. You're going to tell me how to build it, and I'm going to put my gloves on before we get started. So the first thing that I need to know is what kind of bread do you want? So can you please choose white, wheat, Italian? White. So I'm going to go over to the bread cart and I'm going to pull out a loaf of white bread, but then we have to cut it. So I'm going to pick up the knife that's on the counter and I'm going to cut that bread in half and lay it open, you know, kind of smush it open so I can put the condiments and the meat on there. So would you like mayonnaise on there? So I'm going to reach in and grab, there's always like this paddle thing sticking up of the mayonnaise. So I'm going to grab the paddle thing and I'm going to spread the mayonnaise on the bread and I'm going to stick the paddle thing back in the mayo for whoever needs it next. Now, how about some other sauces? Do you want honey mustard, spicy mustard, ranch? Honey mustard. So I'm going to grab one of those containers of honey mustard and I'm going to squirt it on the bread with the mayonnaise. Okay, now let's get some bacon because everything's better with bacon. So I'm going to open the bacon package and put it on the sandwich as well. Now, what kind of meat do you want? Turkey, ham, roast beef? Ham. All right, so I'm going to get into the cooler and I'm going to get the ham out of the cooler and put it on the sandwich. What kind of cheese do you want on this? Provolone. So I'm going to go to the cheese drawer and look. Oh, I'm out of provolone, darn it. So let me go to the big walk-in cooler and I'm going to get a hunk of provolone cheese. And now I got to slice it. So I'm going to throw it on the slicer, get a couple slices, and I'm going to put that on the sandwich as well. Do we want this toasted? Yeah, because everything is better toasted. So we're going to unfortunately have to wait for that toaster because it's always busy. So we're going to kind of hang out for a second and wait for the toaster to be available. And now when it's our turn, we're going to put it in the toaster, use the little controls to set the timer, and we're waiting. And when it's done, we're going to grab that paddle and pull it because it's hot. You don't want to touch that. So, you know, I'm going to pull it out, put it on the counter. And now we're ready for our toppings. Lettuce. Okay, so I'm going to reach my hand in and grab the lettuce and spread it out on the sandwich. What about tomatoes? Yeah, tomatoes. So I'm going to get a couple slices of tomato and put it on. Hold on, just stay with me. I'm going to put the tomatoes on there. Black olives, peppers, onions. No, none of those. Oil, vinegar, salt, pepper. Okay, so I'm going to get the oil and vinegar and shake it on there and some salt and pepper and shake it on there. Now I'm going to grab that knife that was laying on the counter, and I'm going to shove it into the sandwich and fold it over, and I'm going to cut it in half and then wrap it up. So that's a good sandwich. Now I'm hungry, guys. Now I am hungry. You ready to eat that sandwich?
No, those gloves were not changed at all in that process. Touched everything.
But you guys were happy that I was wearing gloves.
My cheese came from the back.
Yeah, that was just thinking that. She had to touch the refrigerator door.
All right, so here's our question. Did those gloves do what you thought they were doing?
Absolutely not.
It really depends. If you thought that I was wearing gloves so that my skin did not touch your sandwich, yes, the gloves were effective, absolutely. Because my skin never touched your sandwich, but did it really keep your sandwich clean? So now we have to understand that gloves can do two separate things. You guys understand that? Okay. So in healthcare, we got to figure out which one of those things is more important, because you can't have both at the same time. So we're going to get there. Just tuck that question away for a few minutes. But first, I want to bring your attention. You guys have already clued in on this, but bring your attention to everything those gloves touched during this encounter. We touched the bread cart, the mayonnaise spreader, the knife to cut the bread, the mayonnaise spreader, the sauce bottles, the bacon package, the cheese drawer, the door handle for the cooler, the containers inside the cooler, the slicing machine, the table, the toaster oven controls, the paddle, the lettuce, tomato, and other toppings, and the wrapper. So we've touched a lot of things with these gloves. But you thought 5 minutes ago that those gloves were a good idea. The problem with wearing gloves when we wear them routinely is that we quit paying attention to what they touch. That's a problem, especially when we're working in healthcare. Because if you're not aware of what your gloves are touching, you are going to spread pathogens. But you'll also accidentally contaminate your gloves and take that contamination to the patient. So gloves are not a wear them and don't think about it situation. Now, I will tell you that I'm the one that took these pictures, and I ate that sandwich. Absolutely. And it was a good sandwich. And that's because my immune system is okay, and it needs a little bit of a workout now and then to stay in tip-top shape. If my immune system sits down on a couch and eats potato chips all day, it's not going to be in good shape. It needs a little bit of priming, and eating that sandwich was perfectly okay. Now, if I had seen anything egregious, I would probably ask her, like, she got the trash, right? Right. Now, I have had people that are aware of this while building sandwiches and change their gloves, and that's great. But at what point would you change a glove? Think about all the things that we touched, right? If we go back to this screen, you telling me that you're going to change your gloves 14 times to make a sandwich? Sorry, I don't understand. Yeah. I think we need to put that transmitter up a little higher.
Yeah.
No, it's the camera that's losing feed.
Oh.
The Atmos and the camera are struggling to communicate right now, it looks like.
Huh. Okay. Well, we'll do what we can here. We're not going to change our gloves 14 times to make a sandwich. I mean, it's just not practical. It's not financially feasible. It doesn't work. So we've got to approach this a little bit more judiciously. And part of that is just becoming aware of what we're touching with those gloves. Does that make sense? Good. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This is called the chain of infection, and this is a very important topic for you to understand for the state exam. This forms the foundation of all infection control practices. Now, some of us think that, we're just going to wear gloves for absolutely everything, and then we don't have to worry about it. And this is the strategy. And boy, I'll tell you what, my job would be so much easier if I could just tell you guys, just wear gloves for everything, you'll be fine. But that doesn't keep our patients safe, and ultimately it's not going to keep you safe either because you don't understand infection control. So we've got to cover this, and you are going to need to know it for the written test. Okay? Good? Good. All right. So remember that healthcare happens in healthcare settings, and healthcare settings have patients with big pathogens. So it's really important that we kind of get our head wrapped around this because we're not dealing with Walmart germs. We're not. We're dealing with germs that are bad enough to make somebody sick enough to not be home. So this is important. I've got a whole lesson on this on page 123. This is your notes page because infection control is as simple as 1, 2, 3. But this is our 5th grade version of infection control. Now, I'm not getting into this. Guys, people have master's degrees in infection control. I'm not going there. I am doing a 5th grade breakdown of infection control. Understand that this concept is way more complex than what I'm presenting, but I'm going to present the information that you need to understand for your role. Everybody good with that? I actually had somebody say, yeah, but these pathogens spread this way. Yes, I absolutely understand that, but that's not relevant to you guys at your level. All right. So the chain of infection consists of 6 very specific steps. And the first step is a pathogen. No pathogen, no problem. If you don't have hepatitis B, you can't give me hepatitis B. You can't give what you don't have. So no pathogen, no problem. But once we have a pathogen, now there's a problem and we got to deal with it. So the first thing that we have to know is where is that pathogen living? Because pathogens don't do well out in the open. They're not good homeless. They're like me. If I was homeless, I would be horrible. I like creature comforts, and pathogens do too. Most pathogens have to be in a living organism to survive. They don't survive well on surfaces. So if I have pathogens on this table and they've been on this table for 4 days, they're long dead. They aren't gonna, they're dead. They're pathogens, but they're dead. I still don't want to eat them though, right? So I probably want to wash my hands before I eat, but they're dead. So we have to understand that pathogens don't really live long outside of the human body at all. They're happy in their little house. The house is called a reservoir or a host. Reservoir if it's not living, host if it is. So if you have the flu, you are the host for that pathogen. And by the way, flu is going around. You guys know that? And the flu this year is super, 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 super bad. Yeah, that I was looking for a more technical term, but bad is a great term. 25% of all ER visits right now are due to the flu. That's how prevalent it is. And it's landing people in the hospital. It's really bad. So you guys should be employing hand washing all the time. If your hand's going to go anywhere near your face, it should be clean. Yeah, and that's the problem. We do that all the time, looking around you guys, like your hand is on your face right now. Yours was just, you scratched your face. We do this without even being aware of it. We're not even conscious of the fact that our hands are all up in our grill, right? So we've got to be a little more aware of where your hands are. Hand washing, super, super important. If you're going through the drive-thru at McDonald's, don't rely on hand sanitizer. before you eat. Go in and wash your hands. You don't want the flu. And please don't bring it to me. Okay. All right. So these pathogens living in a host, they're pretty happy there. They don't have any need to go anywhere else. They're not looking for a new place to live. They're happy in their house. In fact, we kind of have to force them out.
Why does she keep talking?
I'm not asking a question, but that's okay. So these pathogens are happy where they are. They've got to be forced out. And the way that they're forced out is actually kind of ingenious. When you get sick, let's talk about the flu, right? Since it's going around. What are some symptoms of the flu? Cough. So let's stop there for a second, right? So when you cough, the flu is actually not causing the cough. Your body is. Because as the pathogen count rises in the body's like, hey, you don't belong. We need to get you out. And your body starts coughing to force the pathogen out. Same thing with sneezing, runny nose. That's the pathogen coming out. Fever, your thermostat turns up to make it uncomfortable for the pathogen. What's that? Yeah, so yeah, because you're right, your body is responding to that. So all the things that we think are symptoms of whatever the pathogen is actually your body's response to that pathogen. And I always found that to be pretty interesting, right? We always think about the flu causing these symptoms. It's actually the flu invades and your body mounts a response. So all of these things, all of these ways that the pathogen gets out, come out through your natural holes. Coughing, runny nose, sneezing, urine, feces, those are all natural body openings, right? The flu doesn't drill through your skin. It doesn't go from the inside to the outside by drilling. It has to go out through a natural body opening. Now, there are some unnatural body openings too, things like wounds, rashes, sores, and incisions. And pathogens can be forced out through those openings as well. So we have to understand that pathogens, once they're inside a body, they're pretty much going to stay there until they're forced out. Make sense? Good? All right. So all of these are called portals of exit, and they're wet body openings. Wet body opening is a portal of exit. But just because we have a pathogen in a person and they're forced out doesn't really mean anything yet. If you've got hepatitis B way over there and you bled all over the table and it's way over there, it's still not a threat to me because it's way over there. And pathogens don't have wings or feet. They don't. Look at a pathogen under a microscope. They don't have wings. They don't have feet. They're just like little clumps of stuff, right? So pathogens aren't a threat to you unless you come into contact with it. It has to have a way of getting around. Now, in most cases, this is called a mode of transmission. In most cases, this transmission is going to be in fluid or on air currents, usually droplets in air currents. So what this means is that if you have a pathogen and you're over there, even if that pathogen comes out, it's not really a threat to me over here. It's only when I get close that we might potentially have a problem. But I still have to come into contact with that pathogen. There are very, very few pathogens that actually float in the air. Most pathogens are way too heavy. They only float out maybe 3 feet and then drop because they're on mucus droplets. Very, very few pathogens actually float in the air itself. And measles is one of them. Have you guys heard about the measles outbreak? And when they come on the news and they say somebody with the measles was in this airport on this date, it's because measles actually floats in the air. If I have measles, all of you guys have been exposed. It is airborne, but it's one of the very, very few pathogens that's airborne. I mean, less than this many. Is that going to do something? Less than that many that are actually truly airborne. Most pathogens are droplet, right? They have to hitch a ride on mucus droplets. COVID was mucus, was droplet, but we didn't know that at the beginning. Okay, so we didn't know that at the beginning. We had no idea. Droplet is a type of airborne. Okay, it's like a car is a type of a vehicle. Okay, but there's also trucks and SUVs and trains and boats, right? COVID was at the very beginning, we thought to be airborne. That's why we told everybody, stay home. Don't be around other people. Then we realized after a little bit of investigation that no, it's droplet. So stay 6 feet away from other people, wash your hands a lot. Okay. So we adjusted our approach based on more information. Make sense? Very few airborne. Airborne is difficult to control because it's in the air. Droplet, still hard to control because humans put their hands in all kinds of places. Still hard to control, but not as hard as airborne. Good? Good. So how the pathogen gets around is called the mode of transmission. And this we're going to be very, very concerned with because this is how things are spread. And if we know how something is spread, then we know how to keep ourselves safe from that pathogen. So as healthcare providers, the mode of transmission, we're very, very, very aware of, very familiar with, very all up in the feels with, right? We get into this pretty deep because I don't want what you've got. I don't. But more importantly, I don't want to give her what you've got because she's here for something totally different. Her immune system already working overtime. So if I give her a new pathogen and her immune system's already super busy, who's going to fight off this new pathogen? Nobody. And it's likely to hurt her or potentially kill her. So we have to understand that gloves are not just there to protect us. Make sense? So, but we need to know this mode of transmission for every pathogen we're working with. This is going to prompt the protection that you're told to take. Now, PPE is personal protective equipment, and this is what we're going to tell you on the care plan to use with certain patients. Okay? So if we don't know what you've got, not real clear on what pathogens you're carrying around with you, because we don't have this little screen on our forehead that says currently HIV positive, right? We don't have that. I might have HIV and you guys have no idea. I don't even have any idea because I haven't gotten symptoms yet. No symptoms means I didn't go to the doctor. No doctor means I didn't get tested. I have no idea I have HIV. And yet, if I spring a leak, if I start bleeding, right, you could be exposed to HIV because I don't know I have it. Does that make sense? So if you're going to touch anything wet and sticky that came out of me, you probably want a set of gloves on. It's called standard precautions. It's something I'm going to take with everybody because I can't tell by looking at you what you got. So if I'm going to touch something wet and sticky that came out of somebody else, something ooey gooey, that's not mine, I'm going to wear a set of gloves.
I think it's a malaria that was spreading by the woman that was selling some bread, and she was like selling it to every people, and she was spreading it without even knowing that she was just the carrier of it.
Yeah. Malaria spreads that. Yeah. Malaria is, thankfully, it's not something that we have to deal with a lot in the U.S. We have a few cases here and there, some West Nile too, but that's not as prevalent here as it is in more tropical climates. Thank God. Yeah, malaria is not one I want to deal with. Same thing with Ebola. Man, I will go out of my way to avoid that. No, thank you. Yeah, and we still actually have the bubonic plague. Yeah.
Somebody had died in California because of it. I heard that
Yeah.
a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I think it's like 2 or 3 cases a year.
Yeah. Hantavirus too, which is a close cousin.
What virus?
Hantavirus. It's a close cousin. All right. So the most common way that pathogens travel, the most common way is on mucus droplets in the air. So within 3 feet of your patient. If they're coughing, sneezing, runny nose, yeah, and that's the most common thing that we encounter, right? This is within 3 feet of them, you're going to have pathogens. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, if we don't know if you've got a pathogen, we're going to wear gloves if we're going to touch anything ooey gooey. If we know you have a pathogen, now we can step up our protection efforts based on how it's spread. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's called transmission-based precautions. Wearing gloves, if you're going to touch any wet body openings or ooey gooey that's not yours, that's standard. We use that with everybody. Transmission is when I know you have a pathogen. We've identified the pathogen. We know how it spreads, and we're going to take additional precautions to protect ourselves against it. Good? Questions? All right. So remember that pathogens prefer to be in the body. It's where they really want to be. Well, there's a specific type of pathogen called a blood-borne pathogen. It doesn't just need to be in the body, it needs to be in the blood in the body. So it doesn't live in the lungs. It doesn't live in the mouth. It doesn't live in the urine. It lives in the blood. Okay? This is HIV, hepatitis, right? These are blood-borne pathogens. And this pathogen really needs blood-to-blood contact. So if you don't have blood-to-blood contact, it's really, really hard to catch. Really hard to catch. So blood-borne pathogens is a type of contact, but it's a very specific type, blood to blood. So this is where you get like IV transmission, IV needle transmission, sexual transmission, because during sex you can have some tearing and now you have blood to blood contact. So blood to blood is blood-borne. If you have a patient with a blood-borne pathogen, there's going to be some specific precautions we're going to have to take with that. The best rule, well, we'll get there. All right, so once we have a pathogen, it's got a comfy place to live, it was forced out, and it made its way to us. So, man, a lot of steps there. It made its way to us. All hope is not lost yet, because it's got to have a way in. It can't drill through the skin. I can smear HIV positive blood on my skin, and it is not a threat because that pathogen does not have a drill. It cannot get through my skin. Skin is the best glove you'll ever wear, as long as you keep it clean. Okay. Now there's our problem, right? We have holes that we touch all the time, just like that. Yeah, just like that. So if I have HIV positive blood on me, chances are I'm probably somewhere along the way going to wipe my nose, scratch my face, do something, bring it next to my doorways in. So pathogens need a doorway in to a new host. But even still, so we've got a pathogen way over there, living in a body, happy. Patient springs a leak. The pathogen goes onto the table. I come along and touch the table, touch my face. The pathogen is in me now. Still not a problem. Still not a problem because I have an immune system. Pathogens can get in through any of the doorways. Remember, these were the doorways out? Same doorways in. Same doorways in. If the pathogen can't find a doorway to enter, called a portal of entry, if it can't find a doorway, it dies. No problem. No issue. But if they do find a doorway, that person needs to be susceptible for an infection to take hold. Now, what does that mean? Susceptible. It means that my immune system must not be able to fight it off. Now, there's a couple different ways that my immune system can fight it off. The first is through direct contact. So let me explain a hypothetical situation. Let's say we got a whole group of bad guys out there, okay? Whole group of bad guys. First one walks in that door and sees you because you're the closest one to the door. Bad guy, walk in the door. You look at the bad guy looks at you, and you realize that you got to do something because you're the closest one. So you pick up your coffee cup, you take the lid off, and you splash it with coffee. Yeah. Probably not going to do a whole lot, but it did scare him off. So he runs outside and he tells the next person, the next bad guy, hey, when you go in that room, yeah, she's going to throw coffee on you. Just duck, right? So second bad guy comes in, you throw coffee, doesn't do anything. You're next up. You pick up your cup and you start beating it over the head with it. And you're causing some lumps because it's a pretty heavy cup, but it still didn't kill the pathogen. So it runs outside. Tells third bad guy, coffee, cup. Third bad guy comes in, dodges the coffee, ducks the cup. You pick up that fire extinguisher and you wail on it and you figure out how to kill it. Congratulations. Thank you. You've kept us all safe. Okay. Now, that third bad guy is dead. It cannot go back out and tell anybody else about the fire extinguisher. And now we've got a secret weapon. We're going to keep an index card in our little filing cabinet that says when we see this pathogen, this is how we kill it. And we put it in our little filing cabinet, and hopefully we never see that pathogen again. But if we do, we have an instruction manual. We don't have to go through coffee and cup anymore. We go straight to the secret weapon that actually works. That is how your immune system works. That is called direct immunity. You've experienced that pathogen firsthand. You've run through different ways of killing it. You found one that works and you kept a record. That is direct immunity. Great. This is why you're always sick as a kid. It's why you're always sick as a kid, because you're building up your filing cabinet. Okay. Now, there's indirect immunity as well. What if I just handed you a picture of the pathogen and said, yeah, coffee doesn't work, cups don't work, fire extinguisher works though. Now I can hand that to you, and when a bad guy comes in, you can look at it and go, yeah, it looks like the same guy. Let's try that. Right? We're going to bypass the stuff that doesn't work. That is called a vaccine. That's all a vaccine is. It's we're injecting instructions that says, hey, if you see this guy, this is what we do. Okay? Like downloading information. It's really what we're doing. It's like the original download. I always found that pretty fascinating. You program it.
Like giving the dead organisms inside to make them fight against it.
Right. It gives them instructions, tells them what to do. So that's immunity. So if you have immunity, either through active immunity, because you've seen this pathogen before and run through all the things, or acquired immunity, because you've had a vaccine that taught you what to do if you see this pathogen. If you have an immunity, now that pathogen doesn't have a chance because we're going to kill it before it ever takes root. That is called immunity. Make sense? Got a whole bunch of slides on this. I forgot to advance, so. All right. So let's go here. Hold on. All right. But let's think about who actually needs this protection, you or the patient. Yeah. Now, we don't want what those patients have. I get that. And I'm 100% on board because we need to keep you healthy and working. You don't want what those patients have. But you're smart enough now that you're going to be washing your hands like you should. The real person at risk here are the other patients. The other patients. And the number one risk to them is us. Because we're going room to room and we're picking things up. And if we're not understanding gloves properly, we're going to use gloves incorrectly and end up putting our patients at risk. Does that make sense? This is why we have to learn this. All right. So you're pretty healthy. Your immune system's on standby, but your patient is currently fighting some pathogen. If in this setting where there's a lot of different kinds of pathogens, if we bring a new pathogen to this patient and we bring it to one of their doorways and let it into their body, their immune system probably isn't going to have the resources to fight it off. Now, why is this important for CNAs? Because of this. We do ADLs. The nurses don't do ADLs. The doctors certainly don't do ADLs. We're the ones helping our patients with toileting and bathing and grooming and all of the things that put us right up close to each of their holes, their doorways. So most infections, most pathogen transfers are the result of CNAs. Do you guys get that? That's why this is so important. It'd be so much easier if I said, wear gloves for everything. Don't worry about it. But if I do that, I'm going to sentence probably 10% of your patients to death. That's horrible. We got to have a better understanding than that. All right. Remember, we do personal care, bathing, dressing, grooming, mouth care, denture care, peri-care, catheter care, toileting. All of those things involve the patient's holes. So we've got to be careful not to touch things that are coming out of the patient's holes and spread them around, but don't bring anything extra to the patient's holes as well. So gloves are going to provide an extra layer of protection for you, but they're also providing that extra layer of protection for the patient. So let's go back to our sandwich for a second. At the very beginning, you wanted me to put gloves on because you didn't want me to touch that sandwich. But then as we went through the steps, you realized that those gloves touched everything and the sandwich. So they did not do what you thought they were doing, but it illustrated that those gloves did two things. They protected the person wearing it, and they protected the things that person was touching. We've got to figure out which one is more important for us to focus on. But I want to talk to you a little bit about gloves themselves, because if you think those gloves are there to protect you, you're misinformed. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to wear gloves anytime we're going to touch any wet body openings. Okay, so non-intact skin is what that's called. Anything ooey gooey that came out of the patient, or body fluids, and any personal skin. You don't want to be around the breast area of a female without gloves because it's just a little too personal, right? We want that extra layer of distance, right? Good, makes sense? Okay, so the way we remember this is we're going to wear gloves if we're going to be anywhere near body fluids, personal skin, or non-intact skin. But if we're going to wear gloves, we've got to do it in a way that's going to keep our patients safe. So the first thing those gloves should touch, oh, we already know about that. We've talked about standard precautions. I'm kind of out of order here, guys. Sorry. We've talked about standard precautions. Remember, we use this with everybody because you can't tell if somebody is sick. So if you're going to touch body fluids, personal skin, or non-intact skin, we need gloves. It's standard precautions. Let's see here. But if we are going to wear them, we want to make sure the first thing those gloves touch is the patient, not the environment, not the bed controller, not the curtain, not the supplies, not your hair, the patient. We got to keep our gloves clean for the patient. Super important. Okay. And then once we have worn those gloves and we've done the care on the patient and we're ready to take them off, we've got to take them off correctly so that we don't cross-contaminate. But before we take those gloves off, we have to pay attention to what else we're touching in the environment, because even though the pathogens aren't going to live on surfaces outside of the body for very long, we still don't want to spread them around. So we wear gloves when we need them. When we put them on, the first thing we touch is the patient. So we have to put them on at the right time. We've got to be careful about what we're touching in the environment with those gloves. And then we've got to learn how to take them off correctly.
If I can remember, I
know how to take them off. Too.
Very good. Well, we're going to learn together right now. Okay. Before we get there, though, I want to explain to you a little bit about gloves. They're not the magic suit of armor that you think they are. And this is going to be surprising to some of you. So we all kind of, when we put gloves on, we kind of think they're protecting us. That's kind of our thought process. We think those gloves are there to protect, but that's not really the case. And this is going to illustrate it. You guys have all seen a balloon that's blown up by helium, right? What happens to that balloon over time? It deflates. How does that happen? That's right. The surface of the latex has little holes. And when we inflate that balloon and we stretch that latex, the holes get bigger. And over time, that helium is able to what we call leach out or move through those holes into the atmosphere. And that kind of tells us that latex gloves, that's the gloves that you guys wear, are full of holes. And if helium can get through pathogens, no problem. No problem. So when you wear gloves, it's not keeping out 100% of pathogens. It's not what they're designed to do. It's never been what they're designed to do. So if pathogens can get through these holes, we have to think about what's happening on the inside of the gloves. Well, gloves make your hands sweat. So now the inside of the glove is warm, dark, moist. And remember, we learned on Monday that that's the ideal breeding environment for pathogens. So the longer you wear gloves, the more those pathogens have procreated, the more of them you have on your hands. And guys, it doesn't take little boy pathogens and little girl pathogens to make baby pathogens, and it doesn't take 9 months to do it. All it takes is the right conditions, and a pathogen will zip themselves in half, and now there's 2. Yeah, cool. And those 2 become 4, and those 4 become 8. 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1064. That quick. So we don't want to wear gloves for an extended period of time and think that we're safe. We're not. We're giving those gloves a protected environment. All right. So ideal breeding ground. We want to make sure that when we're taking these gloves off, we're not spreading those pathogens around. So taking them off the right way is important. So all of you guys have gloves on the table in front of you. Go ahead and put a pair on. No, I think that's all we have. Yeah, I know.
Back to maybe we have a box of smalls.
Yeah.
There's some in my office.
Well, this is all just for illustration, so. Jake will make sure that we have some over here for you.
We'll grab some on break.
Okay. Okay. Oh, grabbed one too many. All right. So here's an experiment you can do. I don't do this in class because it's way too messy. But here's an experiment you can do at home that's kind of fun. Put some gloves on. Have a paper plate with, the shaving cream, not the gel, the actual foam, the really cheap Dollar Tree shaving cream. Take a little bit of shaving cream, put it on a paper plate, put a couple drops of food coloring in and mix it all in. So now you've got colored shaving cream. Put your gloves on, put your hands in the shaving cream, get it all over your gloves, and then take your gloves off. Because if you cross-contaminate, you'll be able to see and it'll actually stain your skin. It'll also stain your clothes, which is why we don't do it in class. So to take gloves off without contaminating, Dirty glove can touch dirty glove all day long. This is fine. This works. Here. Glove removal steps, by the way, for those of you playing along at home, are on page 43. Here's our steps. Dirty glove can touch dirty glove all day long. Dirty glove cannot touch skin. So in order to take this glove off, I'm going to pinch up at the base of the palm, not underneath. You don't want to go underneath. You want to pinch up and pull that off. Inside out. You want to wind it up in this hand so it's not waving around. We have control over it. Now, skin can touch skin, but not dirty gloves. So you can't do this. Do not let your skin touch the outside of this glove, only the inside. So we're going to go up through the inside and pull that one off inside out. So we have one inside out glove inside the other inside out glove. Now you can take these home and clean your toilet or throw them away. I don't care. Any questions? Any questions? Yeah, if you wear gloves on the state exam, not every skill requires gloves. Remember, we're only going to wear gloves if we're going to touch body fluids, personal skin, or non-intact skin. So the first skill we're going to learn today is pulse. If the patient does not have any holes near where you're going to be, you don't need gloves for this. We don't need gloves for skin-to-skin contact. We're going to wash our hands before we touch the patient. We're going to wash our hands after we touch the patient. We don't need gloves unless there's a reason to wear gloves. Make sense? So very few skills on the exam are going to require that you wear gloves. Only if you're going to be around the patient's wet body openings. So partial bed bath, pericare, catheter care, and emptying the drainage bag because we're working with body fluids. That's it. 4 skills. I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. Mouth care and denture care. I'm sorry about that. Mouth care and denture care will require gloves as well. Oh, bedpan too. More than I was thinking. Okay, bedpan too. But range of motion doesn't need gloves. Ambulating doesn't need gloves. Turning a patient onto their side doesn't need gloves. Pulse, respiration doesn't need gloves. Ambulate, transfer doesn't need gloves. So on the exam, remember, if you're going to be working around body fluids or wet body openings or personal skin, then we need gloves. Other than that, we aren't going to wear them. But if you're wearing gloves, they are grading how you take them off. It is a graded checkpoint. Good? Questions? Okay. So when we wear gloves, we know pathogens probably got through. There's holes in the gloves. Probably got through. So what do you think we need to do if we wear gloves? Wash hands. And this is the number one issue out there in clinical world. People will wear gloves, they'll take them off, and they won't wash their hands because they think that they've been protected. Washing your hands after you remove gloves is way more important than wearing them in the first place. They're not keeping you safe, not the way you think. Now, you don't have to wash them right away because the patient's cooties are their own cooties. They're familiar with their cooties. So if I've done mouth care and I've taken my gloves off, I can do my closing and then wash my hands at the end. Because the patient's not being exposed to anything that they don't already own. Good? Makes sense? But I definitely have to wash this guy's cooties off before I go to the next guy. So hand washing after glove use, super, super important. Don't rely on gloves to keep your hands clean. Only hand washing can do that. Did you guys learn anything about gloves today? Yeah. How many guys are going to go have a sandwich for lunch? All right. So we have flashcards. Let me show you here. These are the flashcards. We have flashcards that have all the principles. Okay. So all of the skills, all of the supplies, and all of those principles are in these flashcards. I sell these on my website for $30. For you guys, while you're enrolled, they're $14.99. You can make your own. Grab some index cards. make your own. If you want color and easy, buy them. You can see Jake for flashcards. All right, any questions on what we've learned so far? We're going to take our break because it's break time. I'm a few minutes late. We're going to take our break. When we come back, we're going to learn our very first skill. Okay? All right, go ahead. Okay, guys, before we get started, I wanted to read something to you. This is a private opportunity. Can you go to 142 for me, please? This is a private opportunity. Somebody that is seeking a CNA, home health aide, even student. This is the email I got. I'm seeking help in finding a qualified part-time senior care provider for an older adult with Alzheimer's disease living in the Spring Hill, Weeki Wachee area. CNAs or HHAs are encouraged to apply. Prior experience in Alzheimer's or dementia care is preferred. However, training will be provided. The ideal candidate is Spanish-speaking, patient-centered, and attentive to individualized care needs. They need help with morning bathing, dressing, feeding, light housekeeping, preparing simple breakfast and lunch. Care is needed Monday through Friday, 10 to 4. Patient is friendly, cooperative, not bedbound, walks with help, responds well to a calm and respectful manner. Looking for a female caregiver with professional and compassionate manner. And if you're interested, please see me after class and I will give you the phone number. It said Spanish is preferred. Yeah. I believe the client probably speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, if that meets your...
We're just in class 2. How can we do it?
What's that?
We're just in class 2.
Yeah, and they have reached out a couple of times over the last like 5 days, so they're pretty desperate. Yeah, they are in need. So if you're interested, see me after class and I will give you that information. We don't do job placement. I'm not an agency. This is really outside of I'm passing this on to you guys as a favor, not as part of the class. Okay. All right. So we're going to learn how to take a pulse. This is going to be on page 52. This is our very first skill that we're learning, full skill. When you're looking at this page, if we look down the side, we can see all of the principles that are involved in this skill, and they're all going to be spelled out for us here. So we're going to read the care plan. We're going to do our opening. We'll evaluate if we need gloves for this patient. Remember, gloves are always based on the patient, right? We're just taking a pulse. It's just skin-to-skin contact, no body fluids, no blood. But if they have an incision or some cat scratches or some sort of wound or rash on the hand that we're going to be taking the pulse on, would we need gloves? So remember, it's based on the patient, not the skill. And we're going to do our closing. So we already know those things. The things that we need to know about the pulse itself, this is skills specific, are going to be spelled out here. This is a short version of the skill. I have a video for it. And down here, we see test specific information. So somebody with your level of experience should be able to do this entire skill, including reading the care plan, doing the opening, evaluating for gloves, doing the skill, and the closing within 5 minutes or less. Doesn't mean they're going to cut you off at 5 minutes. This is how they're going to determine your total amount of time for all of the skills on your skill set. This is going to be done on a live patient. One of you guys will be a patient for this skill. Well, yeah, hold on one second. They're going to give you 5 minutes to do this whole skill. We're going to find out how long we have to count in just a minute. That live person will be positioned in bed, just like this, for the test. So when you're practicing this skill later, make sure that you get a live person and you put them in bed to practice, so you're setting it up like the state exam. This is a documentation skill. You will have to document. And a normal value is between 60 and 100. You can be off by 4 beats in either direction and still be accurate for the test. Let me talk to you about the documentation. Keep your hand here on page 52, but turn to page 168 in your book. $168. If you turn to page 168, you will see the testing documentation forms. You can print these off and use them in your practice if you'd like. But this is what the documentation form will look like for the state exam. If you look at it, you'll see that there are 2 spots for pulse reading. If you have 2 evaluators, you will have to count with both because they have to grade you independently. So you'll count with one, write it down, count with the second. Okay? I know I told you that you have to wash your hands before you document and after you document. This is the one exception to that. If you have to count with 2 evaluators, they'll let you skip that. Just write the first one down so you don't have to remember it. You don't have to ask. Just write it down. Write it down. Count with the second one. Pick up the skill from there. Then you'll do your closing, wash your hands, document the second reading, wash your hands again. If you want to wash your hands, it's fine. You can, but you don't have to. Does that make sense? Because in a clinical setting, you're not counting with anybody else and you're not counting twice. That's just for the test. Make sense? All right, on page 53 at the top, we have our care plan. What do we know about a care plan? What do we do with it? Follow it. Follow it. We have step-by-step instructions. This tells you exactly how to do the skill. You can take this book home. Find anybody that's alive. This works better with alive people, not dead ones. Hand this book to your alive person. They don't have to know anything about healthcare at all. Nothing. Hand this book to them and tell them, I'm going to do this skill. Tell me if I do anything wrong. And they just look at each line item. Or if you're not sure how to do the skill, you hand this book to them and say, read these to me. They read the step, you do it. They read the step, you do it. They read the step, you do it. And you'll do it perfectly each time. Okay, this is that detailed. Comprehension questions here, supplies are at the bottom of the page. So here's our care plan. This is what's at the top of the page. I just put it in a bigger format for you. It says patient will be lying in bed for the skill. Take the patient's radial pulse located at the wrist. So it even tells you where the radial pulse is. Doesn't expect that you know what a radial pulse is. It tells you at the wrist for 1 full minute and record your readings. How long are we counting for? 4 minutes. If it doesn't tell you, you can count for 15 seconds and multiply that by 4. But this one does. And this is our care plan from the state exam. So how long are we counting for? 1 full minute. That's right. So we're going to use these principles to check off these check marks to get 100%. So let's go through this one at a time so we can make sure that we're getting everything checked off. Now, we already know all of the principles. Remember this, right? This is our overview. We've already learned skill rules. We follow the care plan. We've already learned how to do the opening. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, Ms. Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. I'm here to take your pulse. Is that okay? Close curtain, wash hands, get supplies. We already know how to evaluate if we need gloves. If we're going to touch any body fluids, open skin, or personal skin, we're going to wear gloves. First thing those gloves should touch is the patient. We're going to be careful what we touch in the environment after touching the patient, and then we're going to take them off correctly. And we know how to do the closing. Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. Is there anything else I can get for you while I'm here? Are you comfortable? Here's your call light. Your bed is in the low position. Environment is clean. You're covered. I'm going to open the curtain and go clean my hands. Chart, and then clean my hands again. So we know how to do that. So the only thing that's left to cover are the things that are related directly to taking a pulse. Okay? So let's talk about what a pulse is. When your heart contracts, when it squeezes, it pushes out a wave of blood. That wave pushes the one in front of it. That one pushes the one in front of it. And that one pushes the one in front of it. And this is how blood moves through your circulatory system. So if I were to cut open an artery, I would see a wave and a valley, a wave and a valley, a wave and a valley. Got it? Got that visual? All right. So when we take a pulse, all we're gauging is How many times did that heart squeeze over a full minute? Now, pulses are always reported over a full minute. If I say somebody has a pulse rate of 46, that means their heart beat 46 times a minute. If I say they have a heart rate of 72, that means their heart squeezed 72 times in a minute. If I say they have a heart rate of 140, it means their heart squeezed 140 times in a minute. And that's really fast. But it's always measured or always reported over 1 minute. That's what that number means. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to count for that whole minute. I'll explain that in a minute. So if we think about this kind of like a garden hose, right? We have a hose attached to a faucet outside of our house. If we turn that faucet on, the hose expands, gets big, water comes out, right? But the hose itself gets bigger. Turn the faucet off, the hose shrinks down, less pressure inside, right? And water stops flowing. Kind of got that? That's what's happening inside your arteries, right? The faucet's turned on and turned off and turned on and turned off and turned on and turned off and turned on and turned off. So in your artery, you're going to have areas of more pressure and less pressure and more pressure and less pressure and more pressure and less pressure. What we're going to do with pulse is count those waves. We can feel them because there's more pressure. What we're going to do with blood pressure next week is figure out how much pressure is inside the artery when a wave is moving through and in between waves. So same mechanism, 2 different measurements. Pulse, we're just counting the waves. Good? Questions? All right, so how do we count? Well, we can take 2 of our fingers and push down on the top of an artery. And if we push at the right place and the right intensity, we can feel those waves moving under our fingers. Just like here, if my fingers push down, that wave would have hit my finger and I would have felt it. So that's what we're going to do, is push down on an artery hard enough that we can feel the waves moving through. And then we're going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, until that minute is up. We're not counting to a certain number. We're counting until the minute is up. So we're going to pick a starting point on the clock. We're going to get our finger in place. We're going to decide when we want to start counting, where we want that second hand when we start counting. And then we're going to say start out loud because our evaluators have to count when we do. And we're going to count what we feel under our fingers until the second hand gets all the way around to that starting point again. That's 1 full minute. Good? Hopefully, in a perfect world, we got the same number that the evaluator did. Because remember, this is all about the heart. We only have 1 of those. So the heart squeezes, it pushes out a wave of blood. That wave goes on both sides of my body. So if I'm counting over here and the evaluator's counting over here, we're counting the same wave. Make sense? Good?
And then, we have a bigger artery in the left hand more than the right one, so how can it be the same?
It's the same count. It's still the same wave. Now that will affect the pressure of the blood pressure, which we'll talk about next week. But the number, the pulse number, will be the same. All right, so when we're taking a pulse, we're going to support the arm. So the elbow should always be supported on something. The bed in this case, the table if you're sitting, but don't have the arm out like this, kind of suspended in air. When you do that, it actually affects the pulse rate. The pulse will speed up. And the reason for that, it's all physiological. When I put my arm out like this, there's really not much pressure. Gravity's trying to pull it down, but not much pressure. But if I keep my arm out for this, like this for very long, it's going to get heavier and heavier. And I'm going to have to engage these muscles now to keep my arm in this position. Engaged muscles require more blood flow, which means that my heart rate has to speed up to get more blood to that area. and that's going to artificially affect my heart rate. So we want that arm supported. It is a graded checkpoint. Good? Good? All right. We don't use our thumb to take a pulse because our thumb has an artery. And when you compress that artery, you'll pick up your own pulse rather than the patient's. So we don't use our thumb to take a pulse. We use 2 fingers. Now, the pulse is going to be located at the very top of the thumb side of the wrist. So you see how close I am to the lines on the wrist? Right? It's not down here. Don't go down here. Down here's got too much fat and muscle. You're not going to feel the artery. It's buried too deep. So we want to be really, really close to the lines. We're going to use 2 fingers, not our thumb, but our thumb has a job to do. So if you put your hand out like you're shaking hands, let me go here. If you put your hand out like you're shaking hands with your thumb pointing up, right along the top of your wrist is a bone. Find your bone. You should feel a bone right there. You guys feel that bone? Stand your fingers up on that bone like you're going to dive off a cliff. And when you're standing on that bone, if you roll forward, don't move your fingers. Stand on the bone and just roll forward and put your thumb on the back. Remember I said your thumb has a job to do? Thumb on the back of the wrist. When you do that, you should be right over your thumbs. Now, if you can't feel it, you may be pressing too light or too heavy. Too heavy is going to crimp it like a straw. If you crimp a straw, nothing gets through. If you're too light, you're not feeling the waves. You're not pushing that artery down enough to feel the waves. So start light and then go a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper until you pick it up. Good? Everybody find your pulse? Everybody find a pulse? Good? Nobody dead? All right. All right, the reason your thumb needs to go on the back. If I take my fingers and I set them right here, I'll feel my pulse, no problem, I've got it. But what's going to happen is a minute's a long time, guys. You guys are about to see how long a minute actually is. It is a long time. And what's going to happen is my fingers will relax. I can't help it. I have no control over that. My fingers will just, and I'll lose the pulse. So I'll feel it. 32, 33, 34, 35. Where'd it go? It's gone. I lost it. Now I got to start over again. If you put your thumb on the back side of the wrist when you're taking the pulse, it holds consistent pressure. C for consistent pressure. You're less likely to lose the count. Okay? Little trick. All right. Oh, one other thing. We want to use the fingertips, the tips of our fingers, not the flat part. This flat part doesn't have as many nerve endings. You're not going to feel as much. Fingertips have like 3 times the nerve density because we pick things up with our fingertips. So you want to position this. If I just lay my fingers like this, I'm not going to feel as much as if I tent my fingers like this. Okay. Good. All right. So our checkpoint here is places fingers on wrist at radial pulse to measure pulse rate. Now let me talk about the radial pulse real quick. It's not the only pulse point in your body. You have multiple pulse points in your body. This is the one we're most familiar with, okay, the radial at the wrist. But we also have a brachial here at the inside of the elbow. It's on the inner aspect, like toward your body of the elbow. We're going to find that one with blood pressure. You also have an axillary, which is on the inside of your armpit. We use that one in babies because they got way too much fat down here. They're roly-polies. We also have a carotid, which if you've gone and done any sort of personal training, they've taught you to take your carotid pulse, which is up here. You have a femoral pulse, which is in the groin. You've got a popliteal pulse at the back of your knees, and you've got a dorsal pedalis pulse on the top of your feet. There are some others as well, but those are our main pulse points in the body. Which one does our care plan say we need to use, though? Radial. So even though we have all these other pulses, you cannot use them for the test because we have to follow the care plan. I'm going to tell you how a lot of people fail the state exam. They get fancy. There's one other pulse that we can take that I haven't talked about yet, and that is called an apical pulse. An apical pulse is when I use a stethoscope, put it right here, and I listen to the heart itself. And remember, a pulse is just measuring how many times the heart beat, right? So if I take a stethoscope and listen, I can listen directly to the heart itself, and it'll tell me how many times the heart beat because I'm listening at it. That is called an apical pulse. A lot of CNA students get fancy on the test. They pull out a stethoscope and they listen to the heart and they write their number down and they think they're going to get extra credit because they did something super technical and fancy and look how much I know, and they fail and they can't figure out why they failed. Why did they fail? They didn't follow the care plan. It's that simple. They don't want you to get fancy. Because if you get fancy, you're going to put your patient's life at risk because you're not following the care plan. There's things you don't know about that patient. Does that make sense? Good. So don't change anything. Make sure that you're getting this check mark, radial pulse at the wrist. Put your thumb on the back. We talked about that. Our care plan is very specific here. It says 1 full minute. So we have to count for 1 full minute. Now, you can't use, remember, we can't take electronic devices. That even includes smartwatches. So I can't take my smartwatch into the clinical the test setting with me. I can take a regular watch if I wanted to, that's fine. But on the state exam, you've got to set up just like this. You've got a patient in a bed, and right above the bed is a clock. I would just use that. Because if you wear a watch, remember we have to wash our hands, and part of hand washing is wrists. That watch interferes with your ability to do good hand washing. So my suggestion, don't worry about a watch. Use the clock that's provided for you. Okay. The way that we do 1 full minute is you look at the clock, you pick a starting point, and you say start. So I started with the second hand on the 3. Now I'm going to count until that second hand gets all the way back around to the 3, and that's a full minute. You can start at the 12. You can start at the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6. You can start any time. You just have to make sure that that second hand goes all the way back around to that point for it to be 1 full minute. Good? Make sense? Now, I have a trick I do. You don't have to use this, but I'm going to pass it along because it may be helpful to some of you. When I am counting a pulse, like I've got this patient here, and I am counting her pulse, okay? And I look at the clock, and I pick a starting point. Start. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a lot of numbers. I'm probably not going to remember which number I started at. So you can always start at the 12. That's what a lot of people do. They just wait. But man, where do those evaluators want to be?
In their pool.
Home drinking the margaritas. Yeah, they don't want to be sitting here staring at a clock with you for 30 seconds because that is a long time. So instead, what I do is this. When I pick a starting point on the clock, this hand is busy taking the pulse. This hand is hanging out with nothing to do. Nothing to do. So I make this hand go to work. If I decide that I'm going to start on the 1, I do this. Now, this hand is always telling me where I'm going to finish, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I never start on the 11. I figure I'll just wait till the 12, right? Make sense? Good. So that's a little trick that I use when I'm counting a manual pulse to keep track of where I started so I can make sure I get that 1 full minute. Any questions? All right. So what if we don't have to count for that 1 whole minute? What if we're allowed to take those shortcuts? What if our care plan doesn't say 1 full minute, we're allowed to take shortcuts? So if our pulse is regular, steady, normal, a beat, you can pretty much figure out when the next one's going to come, right? Because it's a beat, it's a rhythm, right? Well, if the pulse is regular and I can anticipate when the next one's going to show up, this works just fine. I just count the pulse for 15 seconds. Now, if you look at this clock, 15 seconds is a quarter of the clock, right? So if I count it for this 15 seconds, then chances are it's going to have the same number on this 15 and this 15 and this 15 because it's a rhythm. It's a regular rhythm. So I can count for 15 seconds and multiply that by 4 and get my full reading. We can't use this on the test. Why? Yeah, care plan says 1 full minute. So you can't use this on the test, but I want you to know how to do it in a clinical setting because you're probably going to use this way more often. This does not work if the pulse is irregular. We have patients with AFib, and their pulses are crazy. Their pulses will be like this: thump, 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 thump. Thump. I mean, just like there's no rhythm there. If you count that for 15 seconds, it's not going to be the same on the next 15 seconds or the one after that or the one after that. So this method does not work with that person, which is why our care plan would tell us 1 full minute. Got it? So we just follow that care plan. All right. So we have to report this. Anything we count, we got to write down. If I ask you to take a pulse, let's just say I ask you, go take a pulse on Miss Mary. You go in and you take a pulse. I need that number for, that's not busy work. I'm not giving you something to do to get you out of my hair. I need that number for something, probably to give a medication or to evaluate the effectiveness of a medication or to evaluate whether the patient can go for a procedure. I need that number. So if you go take the pulse and it's kind of hangs out in your head and you don't tell anybody and you don't write it down, did it happen? Not as far as I'm concerned, because I needed that number. So if you count something in healthcare, you have to write it down. Otherwise, it's kind of like it was never done because the person that needed it didn't get it. Good? So if you, for the test, forget to write the number down, you'll fail. Now, you're failing because the person that needed the number didn't get it. We are part of a team. But a lot of people will say, well, they failed me because I forgot to write it down. I was nervous. It was a test. You don't have any part in that. I mean, you are irrelevant, right? This is all about who? The patient, and the patient didn't get the care they needed. So remember that all of these graded checkpoints are all about the patient, not about you. Not about you. And if you can remember that, if you can kind of work that into your mindset, these checkpoints become easier. And you're less likely to forget something because the impact to the patient is what you're looking at, not your score. Okay? That's a testing secret, by the way. People that can make that switch in their brain, that the test isn't about me, it's about the patient, and they start paying attention to the patient and how they talk to the patient and how they work with the patient and the steps they do for the patient. When you make that switch, you end up with 100% on the state exam because now you're focusing on the same thing that the evaluator is. But don't forget that it goes beyond the test. Okay. All right. So now we know everything we need to know to do this. We know to follow the care plan. We know to do our opening. We know to evaluate if we need gloves. We know our steps for the pulse, and we know the closing. So let's put all of that together and get our checklist checked off. So we're going to read our care plan. It's going to tell us what to do. We're going to get those check marks. We're going to do our opening. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, Miss Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today, and I'm here to take your pulse. Is that okay? Close curtain, wash hands, get supplies. We get those checked off. We evaluate if we need gloves. I'm going to look at her arm. Any open sores? No, don't need gloves. I've got that checked off. We're going to follow these instructions. We're going to support the arm. We're going to use our fingers and our fingertips, not the flat part. We're going to put our thumb on the back for consistency. We're going to count for 1 full minute. We're going to record our readings. And for the test, we're going to say start and stop out loud so our evaluators can keep up with where we're at. And we're going to get those checked off. And then we're going to do our closing. Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. Is there anything else I can get for you while I'm here? Are you comfortable? Would you like a magazine before I go? Bed is in the low position. Environment is clean. You're covered. Here's your call light. Open the curtain. Go wash my hands. Document. Wash my hands again. Read the care plan one more time just to make sure I did everything right. Kind of a double check system. And then I'm going to say my skill is done. I should be able to do all of that within 5 minutes. And look at all of the check marks I got off. Notice, though, I want you to pay attention to this. Only 2 check marks actually came from the pulse. Do you guys see that? Following the care plan, doing my opening, and my closing made up the majority of this checklist. Yeah, pulse is just 2. Now, we're going to use the care plan and the opening and the glove rules and the closing for everything that we do. So most of the checklists that you're going to see from here on out are going to look like this. So the opening, remember I said you're going to hear the opening like 27 times? Yeah, you will. So by the time you should get to the test, that opening should be just roll right off your tongue. You should be practicing this in your bathroom at home. Why your bathroom? Because you have a person to talk to, the one in the mirror. You've got a curtain you can pull, the shower curtain. You've got a sink right there to wash your hands. And you got a door that you can knock on. So you should be practicing this in your bathroom at home. Send everybody else out for ice cream because you'll sound funny talking to yourself, but it's a good way to practice it. If I were getting ready to test, if this were me, and I was getting ready to test, knowing that the opening and the closing makes up half of every checklist, every time I went to the bathroom from now until testing, when I walked in, I would say the opening. Before I leave, I would say the closing. They would be taped on my mirror. And every time I went into the bathroom, I would be practicing those 2 things. That's me. If I were testing, that's how I would get ready. So remember, we're going to follow that care plan exactly. This care plan is just for this person. It's not for this one, or this one. These people have different care plans. I don't know what they're saying. I'm not taking care of them. They're not my patients. This care plan is just for this one person. Remember, these guys are going to have different ones based on their own needs. Questions?
Are we allowed to count out loud, like more times, like 1, 2, 3?
You can.
Because the evaluator is also counting.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise you to do that unless you need to not lose count. In a perfect world, it would be better if you didn't. And this is why. Remember I said everything is about the patient, right? So you're standing there. We're going to keep the elbow on the bed, but you can elevate the forearm so you don't have to bend. That's okay. This is not. You guys see the difference? Okay, so I'm counting. Pick a starting point and start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. How weird does this feel for the patient? Because nobody else in healthcare does this. So now they're thinking, what's wrong with me? Remember, your patients are always self-absorbed, always self-absorbed. So now they're thinking, oh my gosh, there must be something wrong with me. What is she not telling me? Because they always think that you have information you're not telling them. Patients think you're hiding stuff. Every patient thinks they're dying. Just ask them, they'll tell you. And they're consumed with the fact that you know stuff they don't know. So if you're sitting there counting out loud and nobody else has ever counted out loud, what is that going to do to them? Does that make sense? Plus, they can throw the evaluator's count off too.
Well, now I know that person just knew.
To be fair, some of the girls that I used to be in a nursing class with, I'd want them to count out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to show you the video for this. And these are our new, we just got, I just finished editing these about probably 4 months ago. And when I did this, I was trying to figure out, okay, this is a video, right? Pulse is something you feel. How can I show you through a video what I'm feeling? This is kind of hard, right? So how do I do this? So what you're going to see on the screen is at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see words that get bigger and smaller like that. That is the thump that I'm feeling under my fingers as you're watching, okay? If you count that, it's what I'm counting at the bedside. And try to keep up with it and see if you get the same number I did. When I document at the end, you'll see what my documentation was. And as long as you're within 4 beats of that, so let's say that I got 76. If you got 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, or 80, you are accurate. That's a huge margin of error, guys. Huge. Right, plus or minus 4 in either direction. All right, so Jake's going to put this video on for us.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Wonderful. I need to take your pulse. Is that okay?
Yes.
I'm going to close your curtain for privacy. Let me go wash my hands, and I'll be right back. Okay, now that I've washed my hands, I'm going to elevate your forearm, keeping your elbow on the bed. I'm going to find the pulse, which is on the thumb side of the wrist. 2 fingers, thumb on the back. And this will take me about a minute. I'll need you to remain quiet during that time, but I'll let you know as soon as I'm done, okay? Pick a starting point on the clock. Ready, set, start. Stop. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Are you comfortable?
Yes.
Would you like a magazine before I go?
No, thank you.
Your environment is clean. Here's your call light. If you need anything at all, just press that red button and we'll be happy to help you. I'm going to go ahead and open the curtain. The bed is in the low position. I'm going to go wash my hands. In Florida, you would count with the second evaluator at this point. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to document and wash my hands. After washing my hands the final time, I'll review the care plan, think about my skill, make any corrections, and then tell the evaluator my skill is done. All right, any questions on that? Were you able to keep up with the count?
I tried. 79. These go slower on there. They're like way faster than this.
Oh, yeah, it was too fast. I was like, I didn't feel like it was too fast.
Normal is between 60 and 100. So if you thought this was fast, 100 is really fast.
1 second on the low end.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any questions on that one? Okay, so first skill down. Congratulations. Let's move on to skill number 2. We're going to learn how to dress a resident with a weak arm. So if you go to page 102, we have our overview. We're going to approach this just like we approached the last one. Down the side, you'll see all of the principles that are involved in this skill. They're all spelled out for us down here. This is a long skill. Look how many principles are involved. We got to learn some stuff. These are skill-specific principles. Of course, I have a video for it. Short version. Down here is testing information. They're going to give you 14 minutes to get this patient dressed. This is a mannequin skill. I know that because the mannequin is right here. That mannequin will be laying in bed. We don't have to chart for this one. So 14 minutes. We're going to read the care plan here in just a minute. If you look at the top of page 103, you'll see the care plan. We'll go through that in just a few minutes. Step-by-step instructions are located here. Remember, I wrote these for people who have absolutely no concept of healthcare. Everything is covered here. Absolutely everything. You make no decisions. Follow this. Down here are your supplies, and you've got some questions that you can answer to make sure that you've got it. Here's our care plan. It says, dress the resident in a long sleeve button front or snap front shirt, pants, and socks. Does it say anything about undergarments? Does this care plan say anything about undergarments?
No.
So we're not worried about them.
So we're not going yet.
That doesn't, we don't care. We don't think. Either they have them on, they're not wearing them. We don't care. It doesn't tell us undergarments, so we're going to skip it. Not our problem. So what are we dressing them in? Yeah, long sleeve shirt, pants, and socks. And they're giving you 14 minutes to get that done. Actually, it's not as hard as you think it is. It really isn't. This whole video takes me about 7 minutes. That's with the opening, the dressing, and the closing. 14 minutes, way more time than you need. So don't rush.
Because I had a grandfather that got bedridden out of nowhere because of high blood pressure, and I was the only person that was with him to help him to get to the bathroom to pee, but I don't know how to do that. So it's like having a hard time in my life to lift him up.
Right. Well, when you don't have, when you're not trained, these tasks are super hard to do. That's the benefit of training, because I'm going to teach you some shortcuts to take, some body postures, some tricks to consider to help you accommodate. So yeah, you probably did struggle. Absolutely. This isn't that hard. And we're doing it on a mannequin. She doesn't weigh that much. So pulling the pants up is not difficult on this, but it's one that I would suggest that you practice during practice time. If you haven't signed up on the practice time sheet, you probably want to do that before the end of the program. You've got 4 weeks. All right. It tells us the resident is lying in bed and has a weak right arm. I want you to underline that, weak right arm. Weak right arm. That's going to be very, very important to us. Very important to us. Says the resident is not able to help with dressing, and after dressing, leave the resident in bed. So where are they going to be after dressing? In bed. You're not getting them up. You're not taking them anywhere. You're getting them dressed and leaving them there. But that's not where this guy's day ends. It's just where our skill ends, our scene ends. Chances are, if we're getting somebody dressed, they're going somewhere. They're getting up. They're going to the dining room. They're going to the activity room. If they were going to lay in bed, it's just like you in pajamas. You don't get up, get completely dressed, and then go back to bed and lay in bed in your clothes. If you were going to lay in bed, you'd stay in your comfy pajamas, right? That's just where the scene ends, because they got to end it somewhere. So it's telling you, leave the patient in bed. Now, patient's fully dressed, so we don't need a sheet during our closing because I don't see their knobby knees. You can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can ask them, do you want the head of the bed up or down? Do you want sheet? You know, how are you comfortable? That's fine. You're not graded on asking them for the exam, though. But you can. So here's our checklist. This is what the checklist looks like. Oh, there's a lot of steps there. A lot of steps there. So when we're looking at this checklist, we're going to use these principles to get this checked off. But the problem is we don't know these principles. We do know skill rules and opening, glove rules, and closing, but we don't know these three, so we have to learn them. That's where we're going to start for this skill, is learning 3 more principles. I want you to understand that the principles that I'm teaching you are not on the care plan. Care plan does not tell you to do the opening. Care plan does not tell you to follow glove rules. Care plan does not tell you to do the closing. It's also not going to tell you when to use a privacy blanket, how to treat linens, and how to keep your patient safe in the middle of the bed. It's not going to tell you that. So we have to learn these in training, combine them with this to make the skill. You guys got it? Okay, that's basically what I just said. Okay, I forget to go through the slides. Okay, so we're going to start out with a barrier. This is always where everything starts, because if we're going to use supplies, we have to have a place to put them. Barrier rules are going to apply to a whole lot of skills. The majority of skills are going to use a barrier in some way. So we're going to learn it. I do have a video on this that you can watch. Notes are on page 85. But the main point of a barrier is that these tables are not clean. They're just not. This table is used for meals and everything else. It's going to hold your patient's word search books, chapstick, used tissues, urinal, all kinds of stuff are going to end up on this table, and the table is not clean. But the supplies that I'm going to use on the patient are. So that's a problem. If I have clean supplies, I have to have a clean place to put the supplies. And since the table isn't clean, we got to make it clean. So for the exam, we're going to use something called a barrier. Now, a barrier can be anything. The word barrier just means a separator. You can use a Kleenex as a barrier. You can use a paper towel. You can use a bath towel. Anything can be a barrier. But for the test, we're going to use a very specific kind of barrier, and that's called a chucks, or actually its real name is a disposable underpad. But boy, is that a lot of syllables, disposable underpad. And there's a different type of underpad that we wash called a washable underpad. And those two things can get confused because they're both underpads. So we call this a chucks because it's the kind of underpad that you chuck it when you're done with it.
Is that what it's actually used?
Yeah.
It looks like a poop pad.
You may know them as puppy pads.
Yes.
Puppy pads, yeah. It's an under pad. It's absorbent, designed to absorb anything. Yeah. So we're going to use this disposable underpad, also known as a chucks, on the table. But remember, anything can be a barrier. Now, if I've got a patient's tray that's got a whole bunch of stuff on it and I can't cover the whole thing in this, I'm going to carve out a little section of it for me and create a clean section. But for the exam, your table's going to look like this. So for the exam, we're going to do our opening. Hi, Miss Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. How are you? I'm here to get you dressed. Is that okay? I'm going to close the curtain, wash my hands, and the first supply I'm going to get is my barrier. And I'm going to open it up and put it on the table with the absorbent side facing up and the waterproof side against the table itself. Good? Okay. All right. Remember that in the opening we learned that we have to wash our hands and then get our supplies. So remember that you don't go in and get your supplies first. We have to do our opening, wash our hands, and then get our supplies so that we're only touching our supplies with clean hands. But there's another part of us that we really haven't talked about too much yet, and that's our uniform. Our hands are clean, yes. We've just gone and washed them. But your uniform is not. Your uniform is knelt on the floor. It's pressed up against the bed. It's, hit the privacy curtain. Your uniform is not clean once you start work. So we don't want to hold supplies up against our uniform. We'll contaminate them. So when we are doing this, if we go get our supplies and our barrier at the same time, so if I come over here and I get my barrier and I get my shirt and pants and socks and I get my privacy blanket and then I have to spread this out. Do you guys see what I'm doing here? Is this now clean? No. So when we're doing this, when we're getting our supplies, the first thing that we get is the barrier. Get the barrier first, put it on the table, go back and get the rest of your supplies and put them on the barrier, not holding it against your uniform. No, we don't change our scrubs. We just know that they're unclean. And we take steps not to let clean stuff touch our unclean scrubs. Don't pay attention to what I'm doing right now because I'm violating a protocol we'll talk about in a minute. Okay. All right. So wash our hands, get your barrier, put it on the table, go get your supplies. Remember, your uniform is not clean. And by the way, this is a graded checkpoint. It's not a nice to know. This is actually a graded checkpoint. So if you hold anything up against your uniform, you're going to get a deficiency on that. All right. So don't get your barrier when you're getting the rest of your supplies. We're going to get the barrier first. Spread it on the table. And then we're going to go get the rest of our supplies and put them on the table. And that just keeps your supplies clean. So everybody got this? So we now know barrier. Look how easy that was. Gloves took me an hour and a half to teach you. Barrier takes 5 minutes. Awesome. So now we're going to move on to privacy blanket. This will be the next principle that we learn. This is really easy. Anytime a patient is uncovered or undressed, we're going to use a privacy blanket. It's easy, super easy. And the reason is we want this checkpoint. We want to minimize exposure of resident. So let me kind of explain this to you. We know that when we're doing a skill, we close the privacy curtain. And to us, we think, okay, I have provided privacy. But there's a problem with that. Do you know who is inside that private area with the patient? Oh boy. Here, heads up. Who is inside that private area with the patient? And you are a stranger. You are every bit as much a stranger as everybody outside of that curtain. Does that make sense? We forget that because we're just doing a routine task on a routine patient and we don't even think about it, right? We don't think about it from their standpoint. But it is important. That patient needs to be protected from you as much as it needs to be protected from everybody out there. Make sense? Good? All right. But there's another problem here. And this room helps illustrate this. Right now, you guys are probably pretty cold. I'm not. Do you know why I'm not cold and you are? That's right. I'm up moving around. That's correct. That is correct. So your patient is not just stationary. They're also horribly underdressed. So what do you think the temperature feels like to them? Super cold. Absolutely. Now take their sheet off. Now you won't stop and think about it because you're comfortable. So we have to stop and think about this. Everything that we do has to be from the point of view of who? The patient. And that's what privacy blankets are all about. A lot of people will tell you, yeah, I don't use a privacy blanket because I just pull the curtain and that's all that I need. Well, that's all that you need. Congratulations. But it has nothing to do with the patient, and that's who's paying the bill. So we have to remember that our focus needs to be on the right place. Make sense? Okay, so we're going to use a privacy blanket anytime the patient is uncovered or undressed. Now, this is something you have to know. It's not going to be on the care plan. No care plan is going to say use a privacy blanket. You have to know this, and it is a graded checkpoint. This makes sure that your patient is always covered with something. Now, the best way to do this, if you're going to use a privacy blanket, is just like what we've got with this lady, right? If this was my privacy blanket and I put it on over the sheet, then I'm going to pull the sheet down underneath the blanket. That way, the patient is always covered with something. I didn't pull the sheet down, expose them, and then put a blanket on top. So blanket goes over the sheet. We pull the sheet down. When we're all done with the skill, ready to end, we're not just going to pull this blanket away. We're going to restore the sheet and then remove the blanket. So the patient is always covered with something. Anything we remove from a bed, we roll up in a ball so that we don't contaminate other surfaces with, edges. So I would take this off and put it in my dirty linen container. Never on the floor. Nothing goes on the floor. Not clean, not dirty, nothing on the floor. We're going to learn that in a minute. But right now, my dirty linen container is there. All right. Another principle that we have to learn when we're putting anything on the bed, whether it's a sheet, a blanket, towel, whatever, anything that we put on, we don't snap it or shake it. Like when I go to the dryer and I'm folding my husband's work clothes, I'll take the pants out and I'll give it a good shake, right, and get it to snap before I fold it so that there's no wrinkles. We don't do that. When I'm making my bed at home, I snap that sheet to get it to spread out of it. No, we don't do that. Because on this bed are all kinds of yeast and bacteria and skin cells that the patient has shed. And when I snap, what I do is create a vortex. and it brings all that stuff right here where I can breathe it in. Now, when I'm doing that at home, I'm only breathing in my own funk. Okay. I don't want to breathe in this guy's. We're not on that close of a level. Good. No snapping or shaking. Okay. All right. And then at the end of the skill, if we're doing a skill where we're using a privacy blanket and we needed gloves, we want to wait until after we take those gloves off before we remove the privacy blanket. And the reason is I've got to pull that sheet up. That sheet, this part of the sheet that I'm touching with soiled gloves is going to go right up next to her face. And she has lots of holes on her face. So it may be her cooties, but do I really want personal cooties right up next to her face? So we take our gloves off, then take the privacy blanket away and pull the sheet up, and then do our closing, and then go wash our hands. But don't touch that sheet with soiled gloves. That's just really kind of gross. Good? You like my cooties? All right. So now we know barrier, and we know privacy blanket. Now, if you think those were easy, linen rules, super easy because everything is repeated. All right. Linen rules are going to be on page 86. And our notes are on page 87. And these are repeated principles because linen rules show up in some skills where we don't use a privacy blanket. Okay. Now, if something is repeated, though, it means it's doubly important. It's going to count pretty big on the state exam because of that whole infection control thing. Remember I said infection, we're the biggest risk to our patients, CNAs are. So infection control is going to be graded super, super heavy on the state exam. So this is a principle. Avoid holding clean or dirty linens against clothing. We already know that. This is a principle, right? You have to have clean hands to get your linens. We've learned that. This is a principle. We don't shake or snap anything that we're putting on the bed. We already know these. They're doubly important because they're infection control principles. But there is one that we're going to learn here that isn't something we've covered already. But before we get there, we're going to skip two. Now, the reason I'm skipping these two, the reason I'm skipping these two is because we're going to get to it on a different lesson, and I've got a whole lecture for it. We don't need it for this skill, though. Okay, so we're going to come back to linen rules in just 2 classes, I think, and I'm going to go over those last 2 things that you're going to need to know. But there is one more thing that we're going to talk about. Unused items must be discarded. So let's say I had a drink. I know I had a drink. Ah, there it is. Thank you. Scatterbrained. Okay. So on the test. How do I put this? You are not graded on supplies. There is no checkpoint that says got the right amount of supplies. Nothing does that. You're graded on what you do with the supplies, though. So you do need to kind of know the supplies that you need in order to complete the steps. But some students try to get around this. They don't learn the supplies. They just go and grab a whole bunch of stuff and hope it's good enough. So at the end of the skill, they end up with stuff that they didn't use. And if they do the wrong thing with it, it's going to count against them. So that's where this comes in. Anything you didn't use has to be discarded. It can't be put back on clean shelf. Once it comes off a clean linen, it's not considered clean anymore. It's gone into a patient's room. So if you don't use it, you have to discard it. Now that's the problem with the test. Because 8 of you are testing today. This is all the supplies that we have right here. We can't run to Target and get more washcloths if you use them all. This is it. This has to last all 8 students, and it should, with a few left over, as long as nobody gets greedy. But if you come along and you grab 14 washcloths to do hand and nail care, by the time you get to your skill, there's no washcloths left, and what do? So if you try to take too many, that evaluator is going to say, you don't need that many. Do not take that amount. They will stop you because they have to make sure that there's enough supplies left for other people. Good. Now, you're much more likely to see this on the written test. You may have a question that says, you didn't use 2 of the washcloths that you took into the patient's room. What do you do with those at the end of the skill? Don't save them for later. Don't ever use them on somebody else. And don't return them to clean storage. We're going to discard them. And laundry's not going to like you if you make them extra work. Okay. A scenario that I like to give for this, because I've actually seen it happen. Husband's in the hospital. Wife comes in, 2 cups of coffee because she had stopped at the cafeteria, brought coffee up to him. As she comes in, she trips over the oxygen tubing that's on the floor, and the coffee spills a little bit on the floor. Not a huge deal, but she doesn't want to leave it there. So she looks around and she sees a stack of linens in the chair for the CNA to give the patient a partial bed bath later. And she just grabs one of the washcloths and cleans up the coffee off the floor so it's not a slipping hazard. You know, that was nice of her, but there's no hamper in the room. We don't keep dirty stuff in the room. So what does she do with this washcloth? Well, she folds it back up and puts it back on the stack. So now later, we're washing the patient's face with a washcloth that was just on the floor. Yeah. Anything out of your sight, you can't consider clean. You don't know what's happened to it. Yeah, not that way. Not off the floor. And not with cream and sugar. All right. So do we understand these 3 principles? I want you to take a moment to understand that you are half done with principles. Think about that. It's only class 2. It wasn't hard, was it? Okay, so let's learn the things related to this particular skill now. This is dressing a resident with a weak arm. We know everything else that we need to know to do this skill, so let's focus on these steps. If you look at the checklist here, just using the principles that we've learned, not taking into consideration the skill itself, right, the skill steps itself, we've gotten about 3/4 of this checked off. We haven't even done the skill. We just did our care plan, our opening, barrier rules, privacy blanket, linen rules, closing, right? But we've gotten most of it checked off. So let's check off the rest of them. This skill actually has the most skill-specific steps. It has the most skill-specific steps. So all the rest of them, even less than this. I start with this one, dressing, because it's something you guys are all familiar with. You know how to get dressed. I mean, you're here and you have clothes on, so I'm assuming you know how to get dressed, right? So this isn't a really hard one for you to wrap your head around. But there's a couple things that we do need to think about and know. Page 98 gives us some notes on this. But the first thing is we have to ask our patient, what do you want to wear today? They get to choose. We don't choose for them. They get to choose. Now, and this is a graded checkpoint, by the way, if they choose something that does not go together, like a yellow flowered shirt and purple plaid pants, this does not go together, we can suggest an alternative. You can say your white shirt would go really nice with those pants. Would you like to try that today? Now, most of the time they'll say, oh, yeah, that's what I meant, because they want to look nice. But if she says, no, I want my yellow flowered shirt, we're going to say, okay, no problem. So you can suggest an alternative, but we are going to honor their wishes. They have the right to wear what they want to wear. Your attire, what you wear, is an outward expression of how you feel that day. There are days that I wake up and it is a sweatpants and t-shirt day. There are days that I wake up and it is a dress and heels day. Now, granted, not that often anymore, but still, it could be a dress and heels day, right? We get to decide what we want to wear based on how we feel inside that day, unless we have a job where, we're required to wear a uniform or school. But for the most part, you get to choose. Well, your patients get to choose as well. And it's important to make sure that we are promoting that right. We're going to minimize exposure. I never want to see this, ever, ever. Patients should never be uncovered and undressed. Probably the worst example I saw of this, this still makes my blood boil. A CNA stripped a patient completely naked, put him in a wheelchair, and took them down the hallway to the shower room at the end of the hallway, completely naked. Still makes my blood boil. What in the world was going through your mind?
I would hope so. If that was my family, I'd be bugging out.
Yeah, it wasn't my family, but I was still bugging out. That's not acceptable. We want to minimize exposure. Dignity is important. Help isn't help if it doesn't help. So the way that we're going to minimize exposure is we're going to close the privacy curtain during our opening. We're going to get our clothing before we undress the patient. Don't undress them and then go get the clothing. Go get the clothing first. And we're going to make sure we're using a privacy blanket while we're getting them dressed. That way they're covered with something even once we've taken their clothing from them. Make sense? Good. Lift from below when you move any extremities. We are not the claw machine at Walmart. We don't do this, okay? We don't lift like this. We lift from below. That provides support underneath the extremity as we move it. Now, this is our biggest principle that we have to learn here. When our patient has a weak arm, and I asked you to underline this in the care plan, can you guys tell me which arm is weak? Right arm. So we have to have that information in our brain to be able to figure out how to dress this patient. Now, if the patient has a weak side, whether it's paralysis after surgery, muscle strain, generalized weakness, arthritis, whatever the case may be, if I have a weak right arm, I'm not going to be wearing things that go over my head. This is not what I'm going to wear. I'm going to wear a button or snap front. We're going to dress side to side, not top to bottom. So we tell the family or the patient, get this type of clothing. And that's what we're going to use. And our care plan reflects that. Okay. So we're going to dress side to side. But which side first? We have to have kind of something to remember this by. And we remember it by USA first. U for undress, S for strong, A for arm. So undress, strong arm first. And then we'll dress the weak arm first. And the reason that we do that, if we undress the strong side first, so this is my stronger side, it makes it do all the work. My weak arm is just laying there. My strong arm is pulling out of the sleeve and, we're making it do all the work. And then the gown or garment just slides right off that weak arm. No movement required. Now, when I'm going to dress the patient, we're going to start on the weaker side. We're going to dress that side. No motion required. And we'll make that stronger side do all the work to get in the sleeve. So undress strong arm first, dress weak arm first. Good. That is a graded checkpoint. Dress affected arm first. All right, we're going to make sure that we're moving their extremities gently. Don't force, don't overextend, natural movement. If they grimace, wince, say ow, pull back, start to, kind of guard, you're doing something wrong. You're hurting them. We don't hurt. We don't hurt patients. CNAs are the one part of medicine that does not hurt patients. If you hurt somebody, you went way too far. Not your job. Okay? And then at the end, we want to make sure we take a look at the patient, see how they look. Pants should be over the hips. Socks, the toe seams should be lined up over the toes. Buttons should be buttoned or snapped appropriately, not all cattywampus, right? Make sure they look good. They got to look good at the end of this skill. And presentation actually is a graded checkpoint. How they look counts. We're going to put the blanket and the gown in dirty linen at the end of the skill. We're allowed to put them on this barrier. This barrier doesn't just hold clean. It can also hold dirty because nothing ever goes where? On the floor. At the end of this skill, I told you this on Monday, there's going to be some skills that require we put the call light in a specific place. This is one of them. Call light has to go in or near the stronger hand because they have to be able to use it. All right. Any questions? We now know all the principles we need to do this skill. So let's put them onto the checklist real quick. So here's our checklist. We are going to make sure that we follow the care plan. We are going to do our opening. We're going to evaluate if I need gloves. Now, I might. If this patient is incontinent, leaking urine, do I need gloves? Yeah. If she's got an incision, I'm going to be near. Do I need gloves? Okay. If she is holding on to all of her own body fluids like a champ and has no incisions, sores, or wounds that I'm going to come in contact with, do I need gloves? No. Primarily because our care plan did not tell us about undergarments. Now, if I had to put undergarments on, now I'm near personal skin. Do I need gloves? See how these care plans are written in a very specific way? There's nothing to chance here, guys. These care plans are way more scientific than you think they are. They're testing you on way more. Yeah, that's right. We just follow that care plan. No fancy. All right, we're going to use a barrier on the table. We're going to use a privacy blanket to minimize exposure. We're going to follow our linen rules. Nothing on the floor, nothing held against our uniform. And we are going to follow our skill-specific steps. At the end, and remember I said this is the one with the most skill-specific steps. At the end, we will do our closing to wrap it up. And we have 14 minutes to do all of that, which is way more time than we actually need. Please remember, this care plan is just for this person, not this one, not this one, not this one. They've got their own care plans that'll be specific to them and their needs. This care plan is just for this person. So what does that tell you about when you go out to work out there? Is this the care plan you're going to use for every patient out there? No. Okay. So that should help answer your what if questions. Any what if questions you have, it'll be answered by the care plan for that patient. And if it's not, who do we ask? The nurse. All right, Jake, can you do us the honors? Remember, we never put anything down. Hi, Ms. Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. How are you? Wonderful. I'd like to get you dressed for the day. Is that okay? Very good. Let me close your curtain, wash my hands, get my supplies, and I'll be right back. After washing my hands, I'll gather my supplies. We'll start with a barrier, and then we'll ask the patient what they want to wear today. Mrs. Jones, what would you like to wear today? We'll get the outfit the patient described, including a pair of pants, a long sleeve button or snap front shirt, and a pair of socks, as well as a privacy blanket. Okay, Ms. Jones, I've gathered our supplies here. So we're going to start with a privacy blanket. I'm going to lay this blanket out over you. This is going to help keep you warm and protect your privacy as we do this skill. I'm going to be careful not to snap or shake the blanket. We'll put it right over the sheet and pull the sheet down underneath. And we're going to pull that sheet all the way to the end of the bed. Okay, we're going to start with the socks. I'm going to take the first sock, scrunch it all the way up to the toe seam, and place it on the foot so the toe seam is lined up over the toes. And then I'm going to lift the leg from below and pull the sock over the heel gently. We want to smooth it out, making sure there's no wrinkles and the heel is in the heel place. We're going to do the same thing with the other side. Scrunch it up, put it on so that the toe seam is across the toes. We'll lift from below with a flat palm, put it over the heel, and smooth out all wrinkles. Okay, so now we're going to put your pants on. I'm going to unfold the pants and scrunch up the leg all the way to the end. And I'll put my hand in through backwards. I'm going to hold the foot to slide the pant leg over the foot, and then I'll lift from below to slide the pant leg over the heel. We'll repeat on the other side. So we're going to scrunch the pant leg up all the way to the end. Put our hand through and hold the foot in place with our hand while we slide the pant over the foot. Lift from below to put the pant leg over the heel. And then we're going to pull the pants up. Okay, Ms. Jones, if I can have you lift your hips up for me. Very good. We'll pull the blanket down and straighten the legs. Because we have to undress the strong arm first, and your care plan indicated that your right arm was your weaker arm, I'm going to sit the head of the bed up to make this a little bit easier to get you dressed, and we'll undress your left arm first. So I'm just going to press the button to get you into a sitting or semi-reclining position. This makes it a little bit easier for dressing. And I'm going to help you sit forward by putting my hand on your upper back. And on the count of 3, you're going to sit forward. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. I'll hold you in place, untie that gown, and then we'll tuck that privacy blanket behind your back as we return you to a sitting position. We're going to remove the gown from this arm, supporting at the elbow as we lift, and then resting the elbow back on the bed. We'll move the gown to the other side. Okay, so we're going to remove the gown from your weaker arm now. So again, I'll tuck a corner of this blanket behind you. We're going to remove the gown from the weaker arm by lifting from below at the elbow to extend the elbow out very gently, minimizing motion. Then we'll rest it back on the bed. The gown will be put on the overbed table. Now we'll take the shirt, and our care plan specified a long sleeve, snap, or button front shirt. This is a snap front. So I'm going to take the sleeve and bunch it up putting my hand in through backwards and hold the patient's hand, holding all the fingers together, keeping the elbow on the bed as I slide the sleeve over my hand and the patient's. Then we'll lift from below at the elbow, supporting, and slide the arm sleeve all the way up. We'll rest that elbow back on the bed. Mrs. Jones, if I can assist you to sit forward, I'll put this shirt behind you around to the other side. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. We'll support at the upper back as we assist her. We want to smooth that shirt down. Come on back, Miss Jones. And I'll go to the other side to finish getting you dressed. And I'll help you put your arm in this sleeve. Again, we'll scrunch the sleeve all the way up. Put our hand in through backwards. And this time, Miss Jones, if you can reach your arm back and grasp my hand. Thank you. Support at the elbow. And then we'll snap the shirt, making sure that the buttons are aligned properly and everything looks good. Now we'll remove the privacy blanket. Adjust your clothing for neatness and appearance. We'll wind the privacy blanket up in a ball, and I'm going to go get your gown, and we'll put these in dirty linen, and I'll be back to get you all settled. These items will go in dirty linen. I'm going to throw your barrier away. Ms. Jones, is there anything else I can get for you while I'm here? Are you comfortable? Would you like a magazine before I go? Would you like the head of the bed adjusted at all? Or your sheet back on? You're good like you are? Wonderful. Here's your call light. We're going to place it directly in the stronger hand. If you need anything, please press that red button and we'll be happy to assist you. Your bed is in the low position. The environment is clean. I'm going to open the curtain, go wash my hands, and if you need anything at all, please feel free to call. After washing my hands, I'll review the care plan to make sure that I undress the strong arm first and dress the weak arm first and put the call light in the stronger hand. I'll make any corrections that I need to make and then tell the evaluator my skill is done.
That is actually less than like the 14 minutes. It's gonna only take 14 minutes and not even that.
Yeah, it may take you a little bit longer because you're brand new at this, right? I've been doing this forever.
Yeah, and
Right. So if you go to page 25 in your book. So the very first care plan is the one that has dressing on it, right? Now, we know that dressing was 14 minutes. It's what they gave us for that particular skill. If you go in your book to page 60, hold on. I don't remember the page number of this. Hold on one second. Page 71. So keep your hand here on 25 and let's go to page 71 for a second. So if you look at the care plan, the very first care plan there, it's the first skill that we have for the first care plan is measure and record respirations. Go to page 71 and right there in the middle of the first column, you'll see a little graph that tells us how much time we have for each skill. So how much time do they give us for respirations? 5 minutes. Okay. So the second skill was range of motion, hip, knee, and ankle. How much time do they give us for range of motions? 4 minutes. So we have 5 minutes for respirations, 4 minutes for range of motion. That's 9. 25 minutes for, I'm sorry, that's 14 minutes for dressing, right? So we have 9 and 14. So what is that? 23, right? So we have 23 minutes to do all 3 skills. 23 minutes to do all 3 skills. But if you look at the top of the clipboard on page 25, what does it tell us? 31. So we have 23 minutes, but where does the rest of the time come from? Well, they give you 3 minutes for hand washing on top of the skill time. So your hand washing doesn't count towards your skill time. So they give you 3 minutes for that. So that's 23 plus 3 is 26. Still not 31. So where does the rest of the time come? They give you 5 minutes for transition and thinking. Yeah, well, for the test, it's right, to review the care plan, to think about your skill and make any corrections. You have 5 extra minutes. So altogether, it gives us 31 minutes. So it's not like you have to do this whole skill in 14 minutes, that's it. It's 31 minutes for the whole skill set. If dressing takes a little bit longer, then pulse or respirations might take a little less than 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, when we get to, so we have 31 minutes to do this skill set. When we get to 26 minutes, that evaluator is going to tell you 5-minute warning. Now you know, okay, I've only got 5 minutes. I've got this I still have to do. So we know that our opening and our closing takes up a huge portion of our checkpoints, but they don't take long to do, right? Especially if you practice the way I'm telling you. So let's time me. Let's see, right? Because I like to prove things. So let's see. I'm going to start on the 3. I'm going to do the opening and the closing. Let's see how long it takes. Hi, Miss Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today, and I'm here to get you dressed. Is that okay? Close curtain. I have washed my hands. I'm going to get my supplies. Thank you very much, Miss Jones. Is there anything else I can get for you while I'm here? Are you comfortable? Would you like a magazine before I go? Your environment is clean. You're covered. Your bed is in the low position. Are you comfortable? Here's your call light. If you need anything at all, please let me know. I'm going to open the curtain. My hands are clean. How much time did that take? 35 seconds to do my opening and my closing. I did not rush either. Okay, so if you have 5 minutes, if you have a 5-minute warning, and you know it takes less than a minute to do your opening and your closing, do your opening, get as many check marks as you can on the skill, and then do your closing. Even if you're missing a few check marks on the skill, remember the majority of the check marks are opening and closing. And you'll probably still pass. It's not an automatic fail to go over time. You're not going to get a check mark for anything you didn't get done. Well, you don't want the closing to be the part you don't get done. Right? Because remember, how many check marks did we get for the closing? Does that make sense? You guys got that? So they give you that 5-minute warning. That should kind of trigger. You should be so good with your closing that you can do it in your sleep. And if you can, you'll get a ton of check marks and you'll pass.
So like if I have just like 5 minutes and I just started the third skill that I have to do, and I started with the opening, and it took me less than a minute, and I'm like, I cannot do the skill right now because it's going to take more time than this.
Get as much of that skill done as you can and then go into your closing.
Oh, so I'm not skipping the skill and go.
No. You don't want to skip the skill. Get as many. You know the closing only it takes less than 30 seconds. So do 4.5 minutes of the skill and then your closing, and you won't be over time. It's all about check marks. But I'm going to tell you, in all seriousness, my students don't go overtime.
Like we're practicing every day.
Right. You should, yeah. Remember, you've got the practice room, right? You should not go overtime. I haven't had a student that has run out of time in years. I can't even remember the last one. Don't be the last. Don't do that, right? I want to be able to say that. So, but yeah, I can't even remember the last student that I had that ran out of time. You've got way more time than you actually need to do this skill. To do all three skills. It's way more time than you really need to, even being brand new, fresh out of the box, don't know nothing. Okay. Where people run into problems with time, remember I said that you can start a skill over? Do you remember that? Because you're trying to get perfect. Where do those evaluators want to be? At home in their pools, drinking their margaritas. Yeah, those are the people that tend to run out of time. You guys have a clue. You know every skill starts with the opening. Every skill ends with the closing. We're going to learn the stuff in the middle, right? But you already know that. So to you, not having a clue on how to do these skills, you have a clue. It's the people that go into the test, and there are people that do this that don't prepare at all. They don't take a class. They don't watch videos. They just register for the test and they wing it. And they figure if they fail the first time, well, then they've got 2 more chances. At least now they know what to expect. There are people that do that. Those are the people that waste the evaluator's time. And they will put those evaluators in a very bad mood. They really will. Because why are you here? Why are you are not ready, bless you, to be a CNA. Why are you here? Now, if you are a little hesitant, a little slow, a little, oh my gosh, I got to make a correction. Hey, you still know what you're doing. You're making honest mistakes. You're nervous. This means a lot to you. That doesn't put them in a bad mood. Do you see the difference there? Okay.
Seriously, I wouldn't have known. I need to knock the door and that's going to take out my checklist. I didn't know that before I'm coming to the class.
Yeah, and that's why the class is so important. But that's why I show you the checklists on here so you can actually see them. So you won't skip that step. That will be important to you. You'll wait, I've got to knock because that's a checkpoint. You won't skip it. Make sense? Okay. All right, remember, flashcards are available for you, and they will help you. We've learned a lot of principles. We've learned the skill, let me not count on my fingers. We've learned skill rules, we've learned opening, we've learned barrier, glove rules, privacy blanket, linen rules, and the closing. We only have 4 to go. We only have 4 to go. So you guys are on a really, really good path, okay? Am I going too fast? Does anybody feel overwhelmed? I know I'm giving you a lot of information, guys, a lot of content, but it should feel somewhat intuitive. Okay, good. I don't want to leave anybody behind. I'm really, really sensitive to that. All right, so let's get to our last skill for today. This is going to be, so this is our last skill today. Now we've got more coming next week. And you'll have a review sheet at the end of today that's going to help you condense everything that we've learned today into something easily studyable. Is that a word? Studyable? All right, so page 76. This should look familiar to us. We have the principles involved in the skill. They're all spelled out to us here. Skill-specific principles, short version, video, test-specific information. So down here, this skill should take somebody with your level of experience, which is
4 minutes.
none, 4 minutes. Quickest skills we do. We have 3 range of motions we're going to learn. This is the first one. 4 minutes. This is going to be done on another testing student. You will be a patient for this. Now, the range of motions we're going to learn how to do is shoulder. That's one skill. Elbow and wrist. That's another skill. And hip, knee, and ankle. That's another skill. So 3 different skills. They're all done the same way. So we're going to learn it on the shoulder. We're going to rinse and repeat for elbow and wrist, rinse and repeat for hip, knee, and ankle. So we're going to learn range of motion shoulder today. Next week, we'll learn range of motion elbow and wrist. The following week, we'll learn range of motion hip, knee, and ankle because they're 3 separate skills. If you go back to page 25, you can see the first clipboard there. In the middle, I have range of motion, hip, knee, and ankle. The second clipboard, I have range of motion, elbow, and wrist. The one in the very middle, range of motion, shoulder. And then I have the bottom. The first two have they have shoulder and elbow and wrist. So these skills, they're 3 different skills. They will show up on different care plan sets. Good? Good. All right. So here is our instruction page, page 77. At the top, we have our care plan. We have step-by-step instructions and no supplies for this skill. Woohoo! Some comprehension questions for you to make sure that you got the important parts. But here's our care plan right here. It says, provide the following range of motion, often abbreviated ROM, range of motion. Exercise to the resident's left shoulder. Flexion, extension, and abduction, adduction. Don't panic if you don't know what that is. I'm going to walk you through it. Provide 3 repetitions of each exercise, and the resident is not able to help with exercises. Let's talk about that last sentence first. Patient can't do the exercises on their own. If they could, they would. And that would be called active range of motion. Everybody up. Everybody up. I would like you to take your left arm and extend it above your head like you're asking a question. Get that elbow straight. Get the hand as high as you can and bring it down in front of you all the way back down to your side. Let's do it again. Up. Bring it all the way down. One more time. Up and bring it all the way down. That was flexion extension. And I even told you, extend your arm above your head. So that's flexion extension. It's an up-down motion. I told you what to do. You did the work, but I made sure you were doing it right. That is active range of motion. You can have a seat. You'll be back up in a few minutes, but you can have a seat. So you got it? But that's not what we're doing here. Your patient isn't doing the work here. So now we are doing passive range of motion, which means that my patient can't do the exercises actively themselves. They are going to be passive. I'm going to do the exercises. Do you understand the difference between active range of motion and passive range of motion? All right, now let's talk about range of motion itself. So when we're talking about doing exercises with patients, we often think about this. Exercises to make things better. But we have a whole department of people that do this. Anybody know what this department is? Physical therapy, yeah, also called the torture chamber. Yes, physical therapy. Physical therapists have a doctorate degree. 10 to 12 years of learning how to do exercises to make things better. How long are we here? That can't be us. 4 weeks. We are not doing exercises to make things better or regain function. CNAs do exercises on healthy extremities to retain function. Keep what's already there. So if the patient can only go up to here before they get pain, that's all we do. We don't keep going. We don't say no gain or no pain, no gain. That's not us. Okay? So yeah, we have to know our role. We don't inflict pain. You guys remember me saying that? If a CNA inflicts pain, you are off script. You are where you should not be. So we want to watch our patients for pain. If they grimace, if they wince, if they turn away, if they stiffen up, if they resist, there's a problem there. Now, if we have a problem, who do we report problems to? The nurse. So all of this you already know. Good. Easy. Easy. So the nurse is going to figure out, we have a healthy body extremity. We don't want to lose muscle mass while the patient is recovering. These are the exercises I want you to do on this body part to retain what we still have. That is what we do. Okay? So 2 types of range of motion. Active, the patient does it themselves. Passive, we do it on the patient. So this is our short form of the principles. Here they are all spelled out. And hey, we know them all. We know to follow the care plan. We know to do our opening. We know to evaluate if we need gloves. And we know to do the closing. There is nothing principle-wise that we need to learn here, but we do need to learn our skill-specific steps. So what are our steps? Well, we're going to support from below near the joint. Well, we've heard that already, right? So when we lift from below, not the claw machine at Walmart, lift from below, and we want to support near the joints. That way nothing is floppy. Lift with a flat palm, yeah. This is a graded checkpoint, okay? When we move an extremity, we want to go to the point of resistance or pain, right? As full of a range of motion as we can. And then we have to go all the way back to start to get a full range of motion. So when I had you guys extend your arm up, right? This is as far as you can go because you're healthy. You were up here. And hopefully our patients will be too. Now, when I asked you to bring your arm all the way down in front of you, if you just got to here and you went back up, that is not a full range of motion. We go up and we go all the way back down to start before we start our second repetition. Up, all the way back down to start. Okay. So we have 3 exercises that we can do as CNAs, just 3. Remember, physical therapy, a lot more, 12 years, not us. We have 3, that's it. This is the first one. This is the one we did together in class, flexion extension. That's an up-down motion. My arm is normally bent, right? I don't walk around like this. That would be a little weird. This is extended. Our arms are naturally in the flexed position. But our legs, however, they're in an extended position naturally. So each one of your joints has a natural position that it kind of hangs out in. Well, what we want to do is the opposite of that and then return back to that for flexion extension. Good? Make sense? All right. The next exercise that we might be assigned to do is abduction, adduction. And this is a side-to-side motion. So if I abduct an arm, I take it away from the middle of the body. When you abduct a child, don't do that, it's bad. When you abduct a child, you take it away from its family. Well, when you abduct an extremity, you take it away from its family, right? So this is a side-to-side motion, but I want you to pay attention to this because this is kind of cool. We did flexion extension. Up, where's my hand? Pay attention to where my hand is. And down. Abduction, adduction is up. Oh, my hand is in the same place. And down. The difference is the way my hand got there and the way it's pointing. You're right. But it works different muscles. This works different muscles than this. And you may be assigned to do both. In fact, this care plan has us doing both. So If the care plan didn't have abduction, adduction, do we do it? No. Okay. There's one other exercise that a CNA can do. You won't do it on the test. It is not on any of the care plans for the test. It used to be, but it's not. I think. Hold on. I got to check that. Hold on. Because I'm pretty sure they took that one out, but I just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. So you will not have rotation on any care plan for the test. None. But it's important to know what it is because it's something you may have to do as a CNA. And a rotation just means around. And not all joints can rotate. Try not to rotate unless you're told to. Okay, because you can break something pretty easy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like an elbow. An elbow is a hinge joint. It only goes up and down. If you get an elbow to do anything other than this, you broke it. Yeah. So rotation is just around. Like my arm can rotate. This is rotation of the arm. You probably think of a pitcher windup when you think of a rotation of an arm. Oh, yeah, it will. It will. But this actually provides a much better rotation inside the joint. Okay. You can rotate your wrist. You can rotate your ankle. You cannot rotate your knee. Not unless you want to end up in the ortho office. Okay, so we have 3 exercises we can do as CNAs. We follow the care plan to let us know which exercises on which extremities. And the last piece of the puzzle is we need to know how many repetitions we're supposed to do. So it's a recipe. We're just going to follow the recipe. But while we follow that recipe, we're going to ask them if they have any pain. We're going to be watching for those pain cues. It is a graded checkpoint. So when you get a range of motion skill, these are the 3 things you need to know. What joint, what exercise, how many repetitions. So if we go back and look at the care plan for this particular skill, this becomes super easy. It tells us to provide the following range of motion to the resident's left shoulder. That's our joint. Flexion extension, that was up, down. Abduction, adduction was side to side. Provide 3 repetitions, tells us how many. That's the skill. That's it. We got to put an opening in front of it and a closing behind it and evaluate if we need gloves, but that's the whole skill. And they give you 4 minutes to do it. So here's what it sounds like. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, Miss Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. I need to do some exercises on your left shoulder. Is that okay? Bless you. Is that okay? Close curtain. My hands are clean. Lift the shoulder up, back down to the bed. Up, back down to the bed. Up, back down to the bed. Any pain? Bring the arm out to the side, back in, out to the side, back in, out to the side, back in. Any pain? Here's your call light. Your bed is in the low position. Environment is clean. Are you comfortable? Would you like a magazine before I go? Open the curtain, wash my hands. My skill is done. That took me just over a minute. And you have 4 to do this skill. So I'm going to show you or Jake's going to show you the video for this. And so you can see how the whole thing looks from beginning to end. On the screen, you'll see the checkpoints at the bottom as I'm performing the action. But it's surprising just how quick this skill is. If I got to pick my skills for the state exam, this is one I would pick. Oh, I'm sorry, real quick before we do that. Let me just show you your checklist and how each one of these is going to check off your checklist just so you can see visually. So our care plan tells us what body parts. By the way, if you exercise a body part that's not on the care plan, it's an automatic fail. Be careful. Following that care plan is super important. We're going to get our check marks for our opening. We're going to evaluate if we need gloves. We'll get our check marks for the skill itself and then our check marks for the closing. So this is a really, really easy skill to do. But remember, this skill is just for this patient. It's not for these guys. Every patient you have is going to have a different care plan. All right, Jake, take it away.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Wonderful. I need to do some range of motion exercises on your left shoulder. Is that okay?
Yes.
Let me close your privacy curtain and wash my hands. I'll be right back. Okay, Mr. Jones, the first exercise I'm going to do is bring your arm above your head and back down to the bed like you're asking a question. I'll do all the work. All you have to do is let me know if there's any pain or discomfort as we do this, okay?
Okay.
So we're going to bring your arm all the way up, supporting at both joints. Slowly and smoothly, all the way back to start. Here's one. We're going to do that 2 more times. Up, still okay?
Yes.
Back to the bed, and 1 more. Up, and back to the bed. Okay. The next exercise we're going to do is bring your arm out and back in like you're making a snow angel. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to support at 2 joints. We're going to go all the way up and all the way back to start. Feel okay?
Yes.
All the way up and all the way back to start. Still okay?
Yes.
1 more. All the way up and all the way back to start. Good?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you comfortable?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like a magazine before I go?
No, thank you.
Your environment is clean. Bed is in the low position. Let me give you your call light. Here's your call light. If you need anything at all, just press that red button. We'll be happy to help.
Thank you.
I'm going to open your curtain and go wash my hands. After washing my hands, I'll review the care plan, think about my skill, make any corrections, and then tell the evaluator my skill is done. All right. Any questions? Any questions? All right, those of you joining us virtually, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If you got any value out of today's lesson, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube. That's a great way to support us. It helps YouTube know who to push this content out to. So if you had any value, please make sure you give us a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Betty says, do you have to put the bed down or raise it up? And no, Betty, you don't have to put the head of the bed up. You don't have to raise the entire bed up to a comfortable working height, but you can if you want to. If you are tall and bending is, difficult for you, you can raise the entire bed up to a comfortable working height for you. But if you do, you have to lower it at the end of the skill because the skill always ends with the bed in the low position. Good question. All right. So your homework over the weekend, you guys are going to read in the yellow book, chapters 2 and 3. You're going to take the test in the white book or the spiral book on page 182 and 183. And remember, this is all on your syllabus. The third column of your syllabus tells you your homework. But over the weekends, you always have 2 chapters. Okay, so weekends are 2 chapters. When you take the test, make sure you're grading it using the grading, the answer key on page 201. So your next steps are to open your wrap-up email. You can watch the replay of today's class. It'll be there for you. And if you haven't yet, make sure that you accept your invitation to the online course because that's going to be important to you when it comes time to review. And of course, Jake just passed out your class 2 review sheets as well. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, those of you that are joining us virtually, thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you next week on Monday for class 3. Until next time, happy caregiving. Bye.
Anything.